All right, we are live. Hello. Feels like it's been a bit since I've done one of these. I missed the last one. Anyway, we're going to have Rob Zerkle on. And if you don't know, Rob Zerkle, big cooler bid dude, somebody that's been around in the reptile hobby for a very long time, as long as I could possibly remember. He had tables and was selling reptiles at the very first reptile shows I ever went to when I was a little kid. So he has an immense amount of experience and probably a lot of stories, from going to all these shows and being around so long. Talked to him at the Southeast Expo. That show just wrapped up. Bob Vu show. The next one is, I think, August 2nd, August 3rd. I should know this stuff. I'm doing it. You should go. Monster Energy sponsors it, which is kind of cool. So everybody can get jacked up on caffeine if you wish. But it's a really, really cool show. It's big. It's not overwhelmingly big, and it's not small by any means. Really, really beautiful venue. I think it's important to have some of these big expos in like really, really nice venues. It just feels a lot nicer it being in a big, open, clean space. And it's a really good time. A lot of really good people networked there. A lot of people had really good sales. Everybody was terrified of the quarter-inch of snow that was possibly coming because people in Atlanta don't know what snow is. So when they see it, they become very terrified and have to be informed by the news for some reason. Anyway, but it worked out. So Southeast Expo, August 2nd, 3rd. We got Tinley coming up. That's in the middle of March. Get your permits. Actually, if you want to get a hog nose, you're probably not watching this, though. But if you live there and you don't have a permit, get it a month prior. It's free. It takes 10 minutes. I don't know how to get these people to do it. We need somebody there with a booth. Anyway, USARK, fighting for your rights and my right, everybody's rights to own the reptiles and amphibians we love. So, these guys, their main purpose and the reason they're here, of course, is to mitigate poor legislation that infringes on our rights to own our reptiles. So, incredible organization to support. You can do it with buying merch. They're at shows. You can follow them. You can share their stuff. You can go to their website. There's a lot of good ways to support them. With a lot of times they put up bad legislation that's being imposed, and you can write letters. So anyway, that's the one thing that we're under fire, and a lot of communities are in some way, where there's a lot of just people that don't think you should be able to do what you like just because they have a different opinion or their ideology is just stupid and sucks. So anyway, support USARK. And so we're going to bring on Dave, add the stage. We're going to bring on Rob, add the stage. How's it going, Rob?
How are y'all doing today?
Doing good. Oh, Dave, good. I like the background. You got that one, huh?
Nice.
Good day, Black buddy. I missed you.
Good one.
All right. So, Rob, you've been actually, I remember I asked at the Tinley show, Robbie Hamper, this question, and she actually wasn't quite sure, and she actually consulted you. I was because the very first reptile shows, a lot of people don't know, the very first reptile show that ever really actually existed or started was in the great state of Ohio. Sorry, Dave. Ohio's awesome. What correct. Year was that, Rob?
Well, it originally started in 1987. Don Hamper and a couple of friends of his had a little swab meet in their basement for a couple of times. Managed to move it to a university in the northern part of the city. And they had one show there, and then the classic wife of a big shot at the university running around the corner. Somebody had a snake around her neck, scared the shit out of her. That was the last show they ever had there. And they wound up in Millersport, Ohio, at the VFW Hall in Millersport, Ohio, which is where I went there. The first time I went to that show was February of '88. So it was very end of '87 when they kind of banged those 3 or 4 shows out before they moved to the VFW Hall.
Gotcha. Yeah, I remember that that was kind of like the place to be, the Armory in Columbus, Ohio. That's where I got my second hog. I got my first hog. It was actually at a Noah show. But so you've been vending. You were I was born in '87. And so you've seen the reptile community come a long way from the very early start of reptile shows just becoming a thing and existing, saying, hey, this is a good idea. Let's have swap meets to where you're at now, which is pretty incredible. Do you ever think about that? Like how much things have changed?
Well, it's changed a ton. And, and a lot of times when I sit and I think about the shows and when we got started, and Don Hamper and I grew very, very tight. He was very much like my father. And as I got to grow and spend so much time with him, it was amazing to me how many people that are actually pretty good size chunks of this hobby all really started at the Millersport show and in Ohio in general. I mean, when you start looking at, Dick Bartlett was from Ohio, and Pat Birchfield, who's a director of the Glassport Zoos, from Ohio. And when we come to do the show, we drove 2.5 to 3 hours, as we lived in Lexington, Kentucky at that time. And we drove every month to come to Columbus. It was that exciting. I think a lot of people kind of take what they get for granted and kind of got a little bit lazy, but it was all we had. It was the only show. I heard about it when we had a retail pet shop in Lexington, Kentucky. One of my customers told me about it. And that's when I went up in February and we were vending in probably April. We had a table there because I was already doing a lot of trading back and forth with Lloyd Lemke out in California. So with some of our stuff, some of his stuff, we were able to vend. But when we come to that show, you walk in the door and there's John Mack, who's now a huge producer of reptiles for the nation for the pet trade. Mark Bell, he displayed there. Brian Barczyk displayed there. Bob Ashley was there. Don Hamper was there. Ed Lukasevic, who's I think now no longer in the hobby, but he was for a long time. Norm Dam was there. Godfather Underr. I mean, it was just like a who's who, of people that really made a difference in the industry nowadays. I think really, really set the bar pretty high. And then
I just heard. Oh, go ahead. I just got to say, because I actually just heard from Ed Lukasevic recently through a friend. His friend wanted to get into hognose snakes. He has some ball pythons. He goes, we have a mutual friend. He goes, he's a really good friend of your dad's, Ed Lukasevic. And Ed Lukasevic, even though my dad go way back, Ed used to visit us on like Christmas Eve, and he'd bring his kids over. We'd play with we'd all play together and stuff. He had a son and daughter that were about the same age as my sister and I. And anyway, he still lives in Kentucky. He sold his Dinovite business. He mainly breeds horses now. He breeds he has a ton of horses.
I was going to say he was working on that iguana food down there for years. And I remember one time he called me up and he's like, hey, I got a few spine-tailed iguanas I need to get rid of. They've grown about as big as I need them. I need to get some more. Are you interested? I said, sure. Next thing I know, he brought me like 75 3-foot and under spiny-tailed iguanas that he'd used as test subjects. So my dumb ass puts them in a box, and I take them to the Mars show over in Maryland, and their ass is dug out of the corner. And apparently everybody at the Mars show got a free spiny-tailed iguana that weekend because they were goddamn everywhere. And that was mine. And thanks, Ed, for that. But
Ed. He does. He did the man. What do they call it? I think NutriGrow. That's like the one for the iguanas. Yeah, he actually that idea actually. Yeah. Go ahead. Oh no, that idea kind of got like. Oh, the Dinovite. Yeah, the Dinovite when you're at commercial. Yeah.
Well, I
think we got a little bit of a lag.
I heard him on a commercial. I'm like, God damn, that's Ed Lukasevic. I ain't heard that name 20 years, but it's like 20 years ago. But he was doing that.
Yeah, he still took. Yeah, he does. He sold that business. He has horses, and then he does have some reptiles from the sounds of it. I think he has some coolibrids.
Cool. It's always nice to hear that they're still around. I know I spoke to Bob Ashley a few years ago, and he was wanting to actually do an old reunion get together of all us old people out at the VFW in Millersport. But now that we've since lost Brian and we've lost Don, I think we've kind of shelved the idea. But but it was I can remember when I first used to go there. I mean, there were no displays. Most everybody had things in will hold boxes and anything they could get from Kroger's or whatever. And at that time, when I went to the first couple shows I went to, they allowed venomous there. Wasn't anything to see Schlegel's vipers and cups and Gaboon vipers and cups, and it became quite interesting. But it was very dedicated following, and the interesting thing was with Don involved with it, you never knew who would show up. I mean, I know we got visited by Pete Call several times. He would come. We all went to dinner after the show at a Thai restaurant in a blizzard up here one time, and Pete got us all snockered on zombies. Because he was bartending at this Thai restaurant. He just jumped behind the bar and started making shit for everybody. You might see Bob Applegate. You might see Wayne Hill. I think Wayne Hill actually came up one time, and it was shortly after that he kicked off the show down there in Orlando at that time. But we never not had a show. I know one time we came up and they'd had torrential rain. And the area there in Millersport is around Buckeye Lake, which is a fairly shallow lake, but they have a dam on it. And they were on dam watch because it was going to burst. And we were driving down the highway, which is one lane, and seeing dead beavers and crap all over the road. And the event was flooded, but we were in there with brooms and shop vacs, and we shoveled it all out, and we still had a show. So the old guys at the Armory would sell beer out of the pop machine that was right next to our table when they were handing hot dogs out over our shoulders. We were right there on the table. It was a really fun time, and it's a little something that I feel a lot of the events kind of lack, or just the hobby in general right now. Because back then, anything you did was amazing. It didn't matter what you bred; it was incredible. We all wanted to hear about it. We wanted to see it. It was a very, very different time, and there wasn't a lot more variation in what you would see. We had our share of flippers there. We had a gentleman by the name of Tom Nelson, who was an importer, and a gentleman up in Cleveland, Rich Clayton. I don't know if anybody remembers him. He loved my wife, but they would bring some stuff in, and I got to see some of the first launch caught boas that were imported in, that were wild caught, up at that show that Vinny Russo talks about getting some of. And it was just very different. It was a very more relaxed, a lot of fun. It wasn't really so much about the money, although money always has played a part of it. I'm never going to say it's not, but it was just a very different time. You'd have people show up out in the parking lot and play their guitars and sell animals out of their trunks, and it was very different. And then we eventually outgrew Millersport, and we moved to a Red Roof Inn in Grove City. We were there for a short bit, and then we wound up being at the Armory, which is where most everybody remembers coming to the show, is at the Armory, which we were there until 9/11. We got booted out of the Armory, and it's moved 2 or 3 times since then to be where it's at now.
Yeah, there used to be barely any reptile shows in Ohio too. I missed the days where it was like the Armory, and then then they were like in that place by Pet Boys right after, and then the Noah show. Now, that's enough.
That was it.
Like, why the fuck do we need 30 Ohio reptile shows? Nobody needs that.
I talk to people all the time and about that, and I think there's something like 28 shows or 32 shows in Ohio right now, and I equate a lot of it, and I don't want to be rude, I don't piss anybody off, but I slung Pepsi for about 17 years as a living, and I was down in the hood. And down in the hood, I had the largest amount of foreign independent shops down there. There was like one on every corner. And they would say, Rob, I'm not selling anything. What do I need to do to sell stuff? I go, well, I can give you a suggestion, but none of you are going to like it. And they go, what's that? We'll do anything. I said, about half of y'all need to close. That's about the truth of it. I mean, when you get an oversaturation point, and something else that I want to touch base on, because I've been trying to help a couple of my little proteges too. But when you reach a saturation point in a market, then it winds up being where you're just cutting price, and that's not the way to market your animals. And a lot of the public the community has gotten a little bit lazy, with it. Like I said, we drove 2.5 hours for years, until we moved up here in Columbus, Ohio. And well, I've seen people bitch because they got to drive across town, and all these little shows and these other shows that have popped up really do is help these people that don't want to buy 1,000 crickets, that don't want to buy enough frozen mice to get them to the next month. But if you want to start a show, you can put a show on every corner every day of the week with the big five, and that's it. And so sometimes you have to, and I think I may have talked to Dave about this. You have to get new eyes on your stuff. You have to get new clientele. And that was the reason why I stretched out to do the Southeast, because I don't do any shows down south. And, if you're stupid like me and you have a very narrow niche of what you work with, it's not mainstream. I don't care if it's Australian pythons or green tree pythons, Steve Doss, I'll see you there, or any of these, or emerald tree boas, anything that you've got. If it's outside the norm, you're going to fill that niche of people in your area really quick, and there's just not a lot of people that will move into an area and go, oh my God, I need a spotted python. You hit the same 1,000, the same 800 people, the same 1,500 people you hit every month. And they get very stale on what you bring because they probably already have it. So, if you've, it's like, if you like Jeff, you do probably well everywhere you go, because anymore you've got what I classify as one of the big fives. Western hogs they're everywhere. They're popular. They were thick down there. Jesus Christ. Couldn't swing a dead cat without hitting a hog nose down there in Atlanta. But,
there was quite a few there.
But they're very popular, but it's a competitive market. And so some of the people that have honed their interest down to, whatever niche that it is, you're probably going to have to find that you're going to have to expand your radius of shows and get into some new eyes and get into some new money and some people that haven't seen your stuff. And that's a suggestion that I give a lot of my young up and comers. But it's
good to see you traveling, because I think that's a good point. And
I think it's good advice.
Too. I think it's very motivating, I find, for different people at reptile shows, especially vendors, to want to go by your table, look at what kind of stuff you're bringing out, because a lot of some of that older school stuff is really becoming very relevant right now, at least with the fellow breeders.
Yeah, and if you just, if you're, it's like I was trying to, I'm hopefully looking for, and that hopefully will be at one more show, because I do 24 shows a year in Ohio alone, because Columbus and Cleveland both have a show every month. So I tell people all the time, nobody wanted to buy my old world stuff in 1988 here, and they don't want to buy it now. But I see the same nucleus of people basically between those two shows. And I pretty much guarantee that there's not some hidden sect of old world lovers buried in the woods of Southern Ohio somewhere, just hoping to God somebody shows up and peddles some animals in their backyard. So I have to go out, and I have to go and look elsewhere. And I do suggest that if you're somebody that you only like Australian pythons, or anymore, if you're a corn snake guy, sometimes you've got to go outside your norm. And is it going to take you longer? Sure. Is it going to cost you a little more money? Yes. Are you probably going to have to do it more than once? Definitely. But I think it's something that some people have got to look at, if they got stale sales right now.
Yeah. I think the moving around and doing other expos, networking, and especially areas like, shows or bigger events where you're going to get a large crowd of people, like you said, it's a very good idea.
Mm-hmm.
Atlanta show was pretty good. I love that show. That's why we have Tinley Park. You go there too, Rob. That's a great one. You get a lot of people from all over the Midwest going to that show. So that's one nice thing about some of those big expos. People will come a little further out. Local shows, you get people that kind of, drive within like a half hour radius. If it's a little far, maybe they go to some. Sometimes they don't. Versus a big expo or event, you'll have people that drive 6, 8, 10 hours, and people all kinds of different directions going there.
For sure.
Yeah,
But we used to do the Orlando's and Daytona shows, and to be honest with you, it was just a little bit harder on my animals than I wanted, harder on me than I wanted. So and we backed out of there. So Atlanta was like a nice mid-range for that. And it's about as far as my old ass wants to drive in a day, about 8 hours, about it. So
Yeah, ain't too bad. It's a little further for me. It's nice to get away from the cold weather. Going down to Atlanta.
Yeah, that worked out well.
It worked out very well. Yeah.
Yep. I know I was running around in shorts and a shirt, and they were all like, "Oh my God, how do you do it?" And I'm like, "Well, I just left 12 inches of snow with -5. I wasn't expecting this shit down here, though, you know." But it was funny to shut a town down with enough snow to make a footprint. I did think that was kind of funny because we played hell finding anywhere to eat Saturday night.
Really? Yeah.
Tons of places were closed due to weather.
Oh, okay. The first one we picked, we ended up finding it was open, so we got lucky.
Yeah, nice. We went to about 4 till we found one.
Wow.
But
Right. Yeah.
but yeah, it's kind of interesting to see. You know, it's the old school stuff versus the new school stuff. I mean, you know, everybody, you know, back in the old days, we all had photo albums, which I hold about as much. After busting my mentor Don with a bullshit picture in his photo album, I hold photo albums in about as high credit as I do shit I see on Facebook, social media. Don had staged a picture in his book. He'd gotten a crap ton of baby mandarin rats from somewhere. They all died. Almost all that import stuff does. He staged a picture with this mandarin rat around some eggs because he was quite the photographer. The only thing was this mandarin was around a clutch of about 20 eggs. And I go, "What the hell are these? Those are not mandarin eggs." He's like, "Shut up. Don't look at my book no more." He took the picture out. But, you know, we would wander around down in Orlando because we did the 1990 Orlando show. And we'd wander around and, "Oh, you got a photo album? Let me look at it." You know, and you'd sit and trade stories and bullshit about breeding stuff and keeping things. And now I think that a lot of it's been done. You know, there's not a whole lot of stuff that the people way before I came around already had figured out. You know, genetics has probably exploded this industry, you know, faster than anything else. But I can remember there was a guy that used to come to the shows. His name was Usman Anunu. He was from Africa. And he would bring bags of 100 ball pythons. And we would buy bags of 100 ball pythons for like $3 a head. And we sit there and go through them, and we go, "Oh, that's an ugly one. Oh, that's a pretty one." We get all kinds of excited if we had a partial stripe on one. Now I'm sure we were chucking, you know, I don't know, anneries and xanthics and all this other shit that they've gotten all excited about. But to us, they were ugly ones and pretty ones, you know. And we would have competitions, see who could sell the ball python the most. I won that. I sold a baby ball python I bought in April for $85 at Christmas time. Look at that. That's a big money ball rolling right there. But, you know, it was got to see the trials and tribulations through the ball market with, you know, people that were buying albinos and they were coming down with the snots and the RI stuff and dying. Saw a lot of guys go through those at the very beginning. And so it's kind of cool to have seen some of them finally work out and do very well. I can't believe the prices on some of the stuff nowadays. I know I think it was at the hurricane show down in Daytona. While Shay and I were up on the roof while the hurricane was destroying the hotel. It was a lot of fun. But we saw spider balls drop from 15 grand to 5 overnight before the door even opened. And Shay and I were involved with one of the first sales of a pinstripe, which was 20 grand. Look at them now. They're not worth a dime. Not worth a dime. So it's interesting how you get to see stuff like that move.
What was the factor about the spider dropping that day from 15 to 5? Just a decision.
Well, we had the hurricane that had hit and knocked out power to all of Daytona except for that block where we were having that damn show. And when that show went on without a hitch, but I think people were panicking that nobody was going to show. And it was still packed. And that was back in the day. I haven't been down there to Daytona for years, so I can't really pass a judgment on it. But that was when sales were really strong. That was the Tenley of its day. Everybody counted down, to Daytona to go down there. And it was a who's who of who had anything. But so I think it was just panic because they didn't think the show was going to pan.
So they thought limited buyers. They knew they needed to go home with money, so they just figured they'd
Yep.
put the price before the day got started.
Yep, and I think that's the trend of today. It's a lot of the industry is very money backed, and I don't talk about money as a bad thing. I can't do this because I love it. I got to sell my stuff. Money is a part of it. It's not everything in it for me, but some people put a lot of money, a lot of time in it, and it's got to pay off. And I get it. I understand it. But yeah, that was a hell of a fun. I don't know anybody was down there, but see 250, 300 drunk herpers screaming and cheering to the top of their lungs every time a big chunk of, what was that, a Domino's pizza? I think it was across the street, was getting blown apart.
Yeah, it was a Baskin Robbins and something else like hybrid. It's a Baskin Robbins and something else. I watched it. Yeah, I was there. That was like my first or second Daytona ever. And the first one we went to, we were shopping. That may have been it because that was 2003.
Yeah, I couldn't remember the day or the month, the year, but
yeah,
you get somebody drive by with their back window shattered out, and everybody's like, "Yeah!" And then, big chunk of something would go down the street, and everybody's screaming, hollering. There's water and shit pouring through all the light fixtures in the atrium of the hotel, and pouring through the doors of the rooms, the sliding glass doors of the rooms. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was pretty wild because the Baskin Robbins. You remember the part where it's like the doors were kind of flexing, then something went to smash the window out. Then as soon as that air, all that pressure went in, then it blew the doors open, and then all the glass shattered. Yeah, everything was getting demolished. Yeah,
it was awesome.
I think even the next year there was still some stuff that wasn't completely fixed from the year prior. It was a pretty crazy storm to witness.
Yep. It was something. You had to be there. My wife was pissed because she called me, and Shay and I were up on the roof watching the storm just beat shit out of everything. And I'm like, I got to go. And then it was like 2 days before there was phone service. She didn't know we were alive or dead or otherwise till Sunday afternoon. She finally got a hold of Don. He's like, oh, yeah, we're here selling stuff. That was a big time. Yeah. But, that's probably a lot of the memories and the stuff that goes along with a lot of the traveling and the shows that I used to do. Wife and I got written up in the back of Reptiles and Amphibian magazine one time about being on the road like 25 out of 26 weekends a year or something like that. It was stupid amount of them. We went everywhere. But with Don, we got to see a lot of stuff, a lot of people's collections, a lot of people don't even know, like Tom Widener, and there used to be a guy by the name of Gary Braddock, and Gary Braddock was over in PA, and he was a school shop teacher, and he would have his kids build gun cabinets for their classroom project, give them like $50, take them home, make them into cages. And when we went to his room, he was the first guy I'd ever seen that did bioactive on everything, and his big thing was all Indonesian and Australian pythons. Did rings and brown waters, and he had the only true king horn eye I'd ever seen in the United States, and the bitches was big. And then just kind of woke up one day and got rid of it all, from what I understand. I never understood what happened with that. We got to see a lot of people, a lot of stuff, a lot of different things. Saw Pete Call's stuff. I got to hold the business end of his albino boa that made all the babies. So did a lot of traveling, did a lot of running, made a lot of friends. Went up and saw Brian. We saw Brian's collection and Mark Bell's when they were both still up in Michigan. They come down to the shows, and I'll tell a lot of people nowadays that I think you want to in what I see of the current industry. If you haven't sunk a ton in everything you own, in a ball market or custom market or whatever it is that you're really interested in. The one thing I always found fascinating is when Brian Barczyk would come to the show. Now, when we had the bust, I think it was in 2006 or something, we lost a lot of the out-of-state guys. But when he would come to the show, it was a beautiful spread, lots of stuff. And when I got to see his collection and in his basement, he and Lori's collection down there, I'm like, yeah, this guy's doing it right, because he didn't have, when you go to Mark Bell's place, Mark Bell's got, 175 female Southern Pines. Well, Brian had like a trio of this, 5 of that, pair of these, and he was able to offer a wide variety of stuff at his table. And this was before he exploded and got real big into the ball and stuff like that. But I think variety is a key to success right now in the present hobby. I think it's a good survival tactic for a lot of people getting into it.
I think it keeps people at your table a lot longer. Even I joke around when I'm walking the show, if I see the shape of a ball python in the corner of my eye, I may not stop at that table. I'm looking for silhouettes, and tables like yours, Clint Barkley, when you walk by that table, you have to stop and look at every single species. There might only be a trio on the table, maybe a pair. So I think that actually helps out. And like you're saying, I've done a lot of shows. Shows have kind of been my bread and butter. In the late, around 2010, I started traveling with Tim Kupinoff for almost every weekend. I drive down from Buffalo, meet him in Cleveland or outside where we lived of Cleveland. And we drive to Repticons in North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Tennessee. And that was twice a month we were doing that together. And any show where I had a wide spread on my table, I can guarantee I would have a good show. When I started getting certain points of the year where I was leaning on maybe 1 or 2 species, my sales were very unpredictable depending on the shows I was at.
Right, and that's where I'm at right now, which really, it doesn't bother me because I enjoy what I work with. But right now, the old world market is very oversaturated and is very soft right now. We're getting a lot of stuff from Europe because Europe produces a lot of this stuff, and they're not really interested in it. It comes over here. A lot of stuff right now is getting smuggled out and through Hong Kong and coming in. That's where this proliferation of king rats is coming from into the country. So my sales are very soft. I didn't sell very many old worlds down there, and I really didn't expect to. I'm at the tail end of my season anyway. I didn't have a whole lot anyhow. And, you just keep plugging with what you like, add a little something. I'm always looking to add a little something here and there. It's like you and I were chatting about, I just added, white-sided speckled kings that I got from Terry Vandervenner.
Those are cool. Those are pretty.
Yeah, I liked them. I hadn't seen them a lot. There's something that's just different. And he was telling me the story behind them that a friend of his was driving on the southern side, I believe, of the lake, the Ozarks, and found this little oddball colored one crawling across the road. He picked it up, drove about a mile or so down the road, found a little normal one, picked it up, had it, talked to Terry, wanted to know if he thought he could keep him alive. He's like, sure. And, he kept him for about 7 years. And then he finally, he asked Terry if he'd be interested in taking this project. He's kind of bored with him, wanted him to go. And what the heck is this? And so Terry got the pair in, and the wound up luckily being a pair. He didn't even know that they were a pair. And what the hell's happening here?
Oh, I'm moving stuff around. Sorry, Steve Doss wanted to see your gorgeous face. Keep going.
Shit, I can't see my own gorgeous face right now for something popped up on my
Sorry, I'm messing
up. Damn screen, I see your eye.
All right. Oh, you're gonna go back to normal.
But so he got them in. They were undersized. They were skinny. Hey, wife, come here. Undersized, and they were skinny. Wound up being a pair. He said he shoved everything down them you could possibly shove down them, and wound up breeding them 2 years later, and they were 9-10 years old. And
wow.
Because he had an origin of where those animals came from is the main thing that I was interested in getting.
Hey,
I got a bunch of pop-ups that just came on here you can't see, and I can't see shit, and I can't find her cursor, so come help me.
Hey, Junior, I sent you over
Yes.
those white-sided speckled kings on Facebook Messenger, by the way. I don't know if you want to bring that up while he's talking about them.
Oh,
Yeah, I can do that.
Hey, look, my tech person just showed up and saved me. Thank you.
Awesome.
But and then we were talking about those white-sided.
That's a good-looking snake.
Yeah, I like them. You know, they're pretty. They're different. You know, I don't grow up anything fast, so it'll be about 9 years before I probably read a damn thing. So, but you got to try something different every once in a while. It is one.
Man, you're breeding these things like Galapagos tortoises. 9 years. I mean, Galapagos takes longer than that, but
yeah. I just don't grow up stuff very fast. But once in a while, you got to go out and find something new to play with, and you know, you'll either gravitate to it and take to it, or you'll get rid of it. But like Dave and I were talking about what he originally called the licorice stick rats, which are the white-sided blacks, and McKimson. What was his first name? Greg? George McKimson in Maryland. He caught, from what I understand, he caught the first one swimming across a pond up there behind the school. And
that's pretty cool.
Yep, that's where and then here, and it's a shame, but there were 2 albino eastern milk snakes caught over here in Pataskala, Ohio, and Don had both of them, and they wound up being a pair. And he gave them to somebody on breeding loan, and of course, then they disappeared. I don't know what the hell ever happened to them after that, which was a shame. Now they bulldozed and built up Pataskala, so they're probably gone now.
That's awful. I love eastern milk snakes. That's the first snake I fell in love with, and that's my first pet snake too. Is an eastern milk snake. I really like eastern milks.
And they're great. They're fantastic little snakes that never grow.
So,
They're pretty.
We used to have people. We used to have people bring them into the shop all the time, and they'd stuff them down the end of a Coke bottle and bring it in and go, "Hey, is this poisonous?" Well, you didn't die shoving it in there, so I guess not.
do you know of a breeder? I believe he was in the North Carolina area, possibly Charlotte, but he did eastern milks, and he had xanthics. It looked like a hypo line, some other line bred stuff in there. I want to say his first name was Dave. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I'm not real sure. He wound up giving these albinos to some cat that used to come to the shows. I'm not really sure even who he was, because his son Shay was trying to give them to me, and this guy talked a better game, and he got them. But they're a great project and a really pretty overlooked animal. But you know, so many like State of Ohio. You know, I couldn't work with them. You know,
right.
We got to pit tag them and kill them by the time they're like 10 inches or something like that. And
a milk snake?
Well, you know, State of Ohio. I mean, anything native's got to be pit tagged. I think by turtles got to be pit tagged by, I think 3 inches. Snakes got to be pit tagged by 10 or 12.
I didn't know that. So they want any native kept species. If you have a permit, it needs to be pit tagged.
Got to be pit tagged. I have a paper trail.
Oh,
you got to keep a paper trail on it. And,
yeah, that's real reasonable. No,
then when they went through here and they did the bust, which was fantastic, awesome day. I highly don't recommend it. When a lot of the guys went and was battling the ODNR about the laws that they wrote, and when they first came up with the first draft of it, they didn't include natives. And I have to tell people all the time, I understand it for the state of Ohio. Doesn't make me like it any better, but I understand it because we can't even have color morphs. But because we've got that locality population of melanistic garters, you know, if you didn't include color morphs, everybody be up there crushing black garters. Because as soon as you shut everything down in the state of Ohio, and I'd done my share of collecting here, but once you shut everything down, all they really did was make it worthwhile and profitable for rapers and pillagers to go and get the stuff. You know, I mean, when, you know, back in the day when my buddy go and get eastern fox snakes like 30 some years ago, geez, he was happy to find somebody to give him $5 a head for him. You know, now they're $150, $200. Blandings are over $1,000. Melanistic garters that are everywhere up there at the lake. I've seen adult females, people trying to sell for $300 to $500. You know, so you made it now more financially worth going and getting busted, you know, than before when it was just dime a dozen. stuff wasn't bringing anything. Nobody wanted it.
Right.
We really don't have that much here in the state of Ohio that's all that great. But yeah, by law, you have to have everything pit tagged, paper trailed.
So, not to change the subject, but a little earlier you were talking about like some of the old days coming out to the shows, like the old Polaroids and showing them off. Robert Fico still comes out to the St. Louis show, and he'll bring his old photo albums with.
The pirate.
Facebook, he's taking pictures of his old photos. Like, I love that stuff.
I love hearing him laugh. He cracks me up when he comes to the table. He comes to Tinley every so often. He has got the best laugh. He's really a genuinely nice guy. He's a great guy. Does real good with his stuff. Been around forever. He's a really good guy.
No, he's very knowledgeable, like you said. A lot of great old stories. He's one guy I've talked about having on the podcast for like 3 or 4 years. I just haven't pulled the trigger on it yet. But yeah, he's honestly one of the highlights when you go to the St. Louis show.
Well, he's a part for me. Part of the best part about coming and doing the shows up here when I originally started in Columbus was after the show, a few select people would get invited to Don's basement. And I remember the first time I went down to this basement, and it was just like, John Mertens' book come alive right in front of me. I mean, the stuff that I saw was just, you're talking about the 80s, and I was seeing rings and womas and red phased the Dominican ground bow as little tropes. Schlegel's vipers and blackhead pythons and Timor pythons and Madagascariensis and just all the stuff you never saw, all the stuff. And you could go to the Columbus show and see at that time, prices are pretty steep on some shit. So you could go and you could see Don with a pair of womas on his table for 10 grand, or a pair of blackheads on his table, 15 grand. Here's this little old show about the size of my house, but going down there, that was the highlight to me of every trip, was getting to go and see his stuff. Albino southern pines when they were very rare and hard, almost impossible to find. Spotted turtles, bog turtles, depressed mud turtles, all kinds of stuff now that you couldn't find if you wanted to. But that was always the highlight. And some of the biggest people, and we would go and he would take us to like the IHS, and I can remember sitting on a bed with Bob Clark. Bob Clark pissed at me because I was breeding carpet pythons by the gazillions, and he couldn't breed them. And I'm like, well, shit, you breed everything else. Why the hell can't you? Now he does now, but he probably doesn't even remember that. But we used to, back then, they didn't even have there weren't very many swap meets around. So we would sneak all our animals in, and they were all in Will Holt shoe boxes and sweater boxes, and we would put them in our dresser drawers. And people would come and sneak by and knock on the door. One time, wife was in the room. She gets a knock on the door, and it was the president of the IHS. And he's like, "Is Don here?" She's like, "No, he's out running around." And we were like, "Oh shit, we're busted," because we weren't supposed to have live animals there. And he's like, "Do you know if he brought that pair of Timor pythons or not?" Sure, come on the fuck in. So yeah, we were all laying around. It was great. People come in, you're pulling drawers open and buying and selling shit out of the room. It was a very, very interesting experience. It was a lot of fun. And you would get a lot of people that don't have their behind the table persona, Bob Applegate and Bob Clark and a lot of these other older cats that show up to some of those events. And it was just fascinating to sit and listen to them talk. If you can get them into stories. It was like one of my favorite memories is when I could get Don talking about when he would go overseas or go down to Central South America, and they would buy stuff and bring it back. You go, well, we come to a bar about 10 in the morning. We go, we're going to be here in 2 days at 10 in the morning. Bring whatever you got. He goes, they'd show up there at 10 in the morning, and he goes, there'd be a line of people down this dirt road, the whole length of the town. And a guy come up, and he'd have this 8-foot long piece of like bamboo, or reed. And he had all these big tarantulas tied by grass around their abdomen, tied to the stick, so they couldn't reach each other. But they were just far enough, couldn't reach each other, and they were all the way down the stick, like 30 of them. or somebody'd show up with a big piece of cut bamboo with banana leaves over it, and they take a leaf off, and there's a rainbow boa in there. Because you never had any. He said he felt that the way they would bring him stuff was more fascinating a lot of times than the animals that they actually sent. But when you could get some of these old stories, and that's a lot of times you get a lot of these people that get on this kick about wild caught and stuff, and one time damn near everything was wild caught.
That's the origin.
It all started. We didn't wake up one morning and have 300 ball python morse to sell. It all started from
tarantula sticks.
Yep, tarantula.
That tarantula stick sounds fucking horrifying. Honestly, I mean, get that away.
I think that'd be wicked. I wish I'd have been there and fly on the wall and seen that.
I like the rainbow boas. I like those. This guy, Steve Doss. Thanks for being here. Steve Doss is very, excited about this whole thing. He's been talking about everything in this chat right now. But he says, tell the crate story at the hotel.
Yeah. Well, that was probably one reason that precipitated our move was that I can't remember who got the call. It might have been Don. It might have been Rick Harvey. I'm not sure who got the phone call. But they had found a loose snake in the room. And it was black and white banded. And they were like, oh, shit, somebody lost a cow king. Be right over to get it. And he got over there, and it was a banded crate.
Oh, man.
That was running loose in the room. Which kind of leads me to something I'll throw out there to anybody that really gives a shit about it. Be very careful about the stuff that you post. I mean, I don't do hot stuff, and if you do hot stuff, I don't care. That's fine, but don't believe for a second that people out there that don't really want us to enjoy this hobby aren't watching everything that people are doing and putting on social media and TikTok and Instagram, stuff like that. Before you post something, instead of saying that, I could post this, maybe you ought to think about if you should. Because I don't think it doesn't paint everybody in a really good light.
No, it does not.
Yeah, we're onerous enemy on that kind of stuff, and where there's always a little bit of policing in the hobby. When your policing turns into like something that goes viral, it hurts everybody.
It does, and I went through a little stint with the last Tenley, and I had posted something, and their IDNR had read it, and through the grapevine told me that I didn't know what I was talking about. I should take it down, but it was exactly what I was talking about, and we're going to see how it eventually plays out. But, for IDNR to read my stupid little post to nobody down here in Columbus, there are people watching what you post, and people are seeing what you do. And you may not think you are, but in one way or another, you are a spokesperson for this hobby, and I think you need to really think about what you post out there.
Definitely. We could start AI editing videos of people at shows, like with like a cobra or like a marine iguana.
Yep.
And are like, whoa!
Somebody covered with Fiji Islands.
Yeah. I held a Fiji island iguana in Japan. It was really cool. It was a very cool animal. And I'm not a big iguana fan, but Fiji island iguana, that's really cool. I like them in rhino iguanas a lot. Yeah, so I was like, I should post. I was gonna post on my Instagram and say that this was in the United States, but I'm like, I'm not gonna poke the bear. I was like, that's a bad idea.
That's probably a good move.
Yeah, so I just didn't.
Yep.
Junior, back in the day when you went to the Japan show, that was like Brian Barczyk, Amir, you, your father. What was that group? Daisuke?
Yeah,
would have been there.
I went there a few times. I did the Japan Expo about 5 or 6 times, but one time Brian went over there, Amir Soleimani. There's these 2 Canadian dudes, Bayard and Ken.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, Daisuke was there, and he's like, Daisuke was known as like U.S. connection, like kind of networking guy. Like, if you wanted to get something from the U.S., Daisuke was the dude. Daisuke, had all of the friends. He knew all the ball python people. But yeah, they went to that show, and I remember Brian. He was at that point. He was a few years, probably quite a few years into his social media stuff, and so he was doing a lot of social media content. Amir was there, very stoic as usual, and yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff there. There's a lot of fun. We hung out with them one evening, and we got dinner, and it was insane. My dad got really mad because they took his Coca-Cola.
Cool.
I don't know. I don't even know what the fuck happened. It was horrible, actually. It was like a big scene over his Coca-Cola. I was like, let's buy you another one because they.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, what have you been able to take bottled drinks into any restaurant? You can't even do that like in the U.S. Really.
Yeah,
they don't like that.
That's true. He had some stuff. He was always hardcore about that Pepsi had. He's like, hey, get me a pallet. I'm like, a pallet?
Yeah, he did. That's where he got all that vanilla Pepsi from, wasn't it? Did he get it from you?
It. Yeah, vanilla.
Yeah,
Pepsi,
and he loaded up the back of my truck. We have some pictures of it because it like weighed down the back of my truck. My dad got vanilla Pepsi 12 packs, and he like, I don't know. Do you remember how many packs it was? It loaded up the whole back of a pickup.
There's a bunch. There was a bunch. Yeah. He did well. But I used to send the Dice Cade used to get a lot of stuff from me and send over there. He's a good dude. I kind of like.
Yeah,
him.
he likes the unique stuff. Yeah, that's what he is. He is kind of like, the shopper. He knew what was good, and what would sell well over there, and he'd always get unique stuff.
Well, I don't know if you noticed it, but I know I used to send a ton, and it actually made me very lazy, to be honest with you. But I used to send a ton of stuff over to China and over there. And when since COVID hit, I haven't heard from hardly anybody, any of the buyers like they used to be.
Well, Japan, their currency got crushed. The yen is very weak against the U.S. dollar, so their buying power is really tough. Yeah, so they're only buying even though I had this one long-term customer over there in Osaka. It's a little further west in Japan, and they were like, hey, we'd like to buy from you. Like, we just can't. They're like, the U.S. dollar is just too strong. The currency exchange is like disproportionately off by at that point 30% more than what it was months ago. So then I kind of worked with them, and I was like, well, you've been a long-term buyer. Let's just kind of work this out. And I was like, I'll just give you a better deal, and I'll just make less money. And I was like, I'll do this as long as the currency stays down. And their currency is still kind of down because the U.S. dollar with their the higher interest rate. And I don't know exactly what Japan. I know they've had issues since the late 90s with inflation, and it's kind of tapered. But anyway, Japan, their market's still there. I think they because Daisuke doesn't come over here anymore, unfortunately.
Right. Yeah.
So all this stuff is done through online transactions, and there's only so many buyers. And I think some of these dudes that are really aggressive with wholesaling, they reach out to these guys because I don't sell to too many of them, and I'm like, and I find out they're getting their animals from only a few people, and I was like, well, why are they getting them from these few people? Those guys are just getting very aggressive with their wholesale. They're having a hard time selling stuff, so they reach out to them. They say, hey, we can give you these really cheap prices, and I can maybe get other species for you if you need them. And so then they get just from these few people, because once they have somebody they're very comfortable with, they really only want to import from one or two people, to keep it easy and consistent. And then the China Hong Kong market, it's still there, it's still good, but they've just had issues, and then the import fees are so expensive, and there's so many people now breeding stuff over there. So the thing is, when they were importing those Mexican Black Kings at $200 a pop, I got stuff right here if you need. I already set it down. There you go. Well, it's not counted out. Here, take this one too.
Well,
you have to figure out that math.
No, Rob, let him finish. He's doing something important, buddy.
Oh no, yeah, it's just so anyway. So they're importing all these Mexican Black Kings. They're importing a lot of hognose from me, and there'd be people warning me, they're going to be breeding those. I'm like, yeah, I know. I'm like, what do you want me to do? Just not sell them to them? Let everybody else sell stuff to them, and I'll be like, I'm not going to sell them to you because you guys are going to breed too many. So they're breeding them over there. And they don't need to import as much from us unless you have something really unique or new. Sometimes you get these guys the funny thing is there's always it's a small percent of people. But then you got these guys that, they're I remember the one dude, he was asking me to put these snakes in the box. He goes, just mark them as corn snakes. I'm going to buy them from this guy And I was like, you asked me that again. I was like, I'm not going to talk to you. I was like, I'm not going to sell you anything. And he's like, oh, yeah, sorry, Jeff. It's just a misunderstanding. I was like, don't get me involved in that shit, asshole.
Right.
Don't these stories like, oh, can you put it in the, oh, yeah, let me just slip an indigo snake in there, you stupid fuck. Yeah. It wasn't the bad one. It wasn't the Eastern. I'm surprised they didn't say that because that's even worse. But it was, red-tailed Mexican. So it's like, but I'm not doing it. It's like here, I tell them, like, how about you just buy some legal hognose snakes that sell for, a lot of money too. And if you want to get stuff from somebody else, talk to them. That's it.
Right.
And that was always my shipments to China and Hong Kong, though, where that stuff was happening.
It always amazed me how they would shift gears. I mean, like one year it was alligator lizards. They bought, I had a buddy of mine out west that bred some, caught some. I had some alligator, and it was all about alligator lizards. And then one year, it was about albino red-eared sliders. And that's when those things went to like $1,000 a piece, because they were buying them all. Now they're like less than $20. And the only thing that I understand slowed them up was they didn't realize that there were 7 different lines of albinos and their albino red-eared sliders, which kind of slowed them up.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that slowed them up a hair. But, they, a lot of people over here don't really understand. Now, I haven't seen it much of late, but don't really understand there for a good, 10, 12 years or so, how the overseas market really drove our market here. And I felt really bad, because I know there's people that were out there like, I'm going to hold every Mexican black king I've got. I'm going to have 300 females by, in 2 years. How's that working for you now?
Not the best idea. The big one right now is Barron's Racers. That's what's been going big there over like the last 2 3 years. Right now, though, it's about to start coming down. Like it isn't, like it hasn't yet, but I know it. It's probably another year or two. As soon as those guys that bought all these, figure it out and they start producing them, they're really into the blue ones, though. They want any Barron's Racer, but especially the blue ones. They're paying like $2-3 each. The guy that I helped, like he bought some, and like I didn't help facilitate the deal, but I helped find the person that connected them. And he's like, does he want any more? I'm like, I don't know. I was like, you have to ask him because you want to buy him. And I'm like, nah. I was like, because by the time I breed them, I was like, I like Barron's Racers. Here's the thing. I wouldn't breed anything just for money. I'd have to like the species. I do like Barron's Racers a lot. And they do have good, like a clutch of eggs. We had, Panda on, and, he has some pretty cool ones. I really like the Barron's Racers, but that's the big one there right now, especially the blue ones. That's the only thing I know they'll buy like every single thing. That's the only thing I know of right now where they'll buy a snake. They'll buy every single one.
I was hit the last couple of years on those, and I just started putting a few on, and I'm not, they're a project I did years ago, but they kind of hit me like false waters. I mean, people going deep in false waters. It's an animal's too productive to hold its market. It's just not going to hold its market. Yeah. So get you 2 or 3 females and enjoy your trips to the bank. Get you 40 of them, and then you're going to be struggling, in about 5-10 years when everybody's $100.
Exactly. I remember when I'd go down to the South Carolina show, and there's one guy, he had a bunch of Barron's Racers on his tables. Like, he had like a big clutch. And his were all green. But sometimes actually the green ones will turn blue. But they're young, they're babies. And man, they were like $250 each. And I was looking at them for a while. I was like, wow, these are really cool. And I wish I would have got some. I mean, maybe I'll get some later on. I like the ones that Panda has, those real hypermelanistic ones with the bright yellow greens. Yeah. I'd start line breeding those, and the blue ones are cool too. But yeah, they do lay a lot of eggs. And I don't know how long it's going to take for that market to fill up. But you're right. As soon as they get a lot of production, and as soon as there's the demand is not meeting that supply, the price is going to get pretty slashed over there.
And some places are a problem with like, hell, I got drug across the concrete of broken glass up in Tenley because I had some, up there for sale one time.
By Fish and Wildlife?
No, by Brian and Bob.
Brian and Bob?
Yeah, you can't have those. Get them off the table. And I'm like, but you just walked by a trio of pied musaranas, and somebody who'll remain nameless has got beak snakes and mangroves down at the end of my table. You want to come rasp my ass for Baron Eye? But
I thought maybe your snakes were so good looking that they assaulted you and stole them.
No, and I will never tell you anything. I got beautiful and wonderful. It is what it is. But
all right. Well, Steve's got a question here.
Oh,
Oh,
Jesus
sorry,
Christ.
man, I'm talking.
One thing that stands out in Rob's memories of the hobby. Well, a lot of the memories that I have is really more of things that I've been told and stories that I've heard from the people that laid the foundation of what everybody stands on today. It's kind of like a good friend of mine, um, Ed Sellebeck, he lives up in Cleveland. Everybody likes to crucify Ed for his history and his background. But if Ed hadn't done what Ed didn't do, you wouldn't have rings in this hobby to have. But when you start listening to the stories that he's got of, living in treetop huts and, the whoever ran this town that he found, everybody would come there and want to buy find ring pythons, never could find any. So he got to be real good friends with the village elder per se here. And he's like, you know what, if you bring me X amount of money, and it was like nothing, like a couple $100 and a VCR, and I'll tell you where all ring pythons you ever want to find are. So Ed goes and he gets this stuff and he goes back to him and he's like, they live in a dump. They live at the end of the town, where all the shit goes, where all the dead animal carcasses and all the stuff from the town goes. And sure shit, he found a shit ton of them down there in the dump. But it's the stories that, like the ones that Don would tell me and Ed, and Ed's really struggling with Parkinson's right now. And there's so many, some of the stories that I was told by Lloyd Lemke. We flew out with Lloyd Lemke in the mid 80s to learn how to be snake farmers. And Lloyd bred false water cobras, all kinds of shit. And I don't remember a cage in his house that was nothing but wall-to-wall tanks, a cage in his house bigger than a 20 long. And he laid the foundation for a lot of lines that are out there today. And some of the stories that he would tell me. And sadly, as those guys pass away, so were their stories. So were a history of the hobby. And back when it was more wild westy, you could get anything you wanted, and everything was who was telling us about throwing Gila monsters in a bag over the fence? Can't remember who that was. Paid some Mexican in a bar to throw a bag over the fence full of Gila monsters, and he did it. I can't remember who it was. They were remain nameless. But, a lot of these stories that, like Frank Veritas, who knows more about monitors and lizards than most people will ever know, or, Bob Applegate, who I think is retired. Some of these guys have just rarely have got the history. Craig Trumbauer, who's a fantastic, wonderful guy. I love Craig to death. Terry Vanderventer, all these old guys that have been around before I got started. I don't take any credit for being an old guy in this hobby. I haven't done anything that, necessarily that hadn't been done before me. But that's the things that I feel the saddest, the most about the industry is that so many of the beginning origin stories are going to be gone,
Yeah, I mean, that's something I've always leaned into in the hobby because those have always been some of my favorite times. Being at the bar, just listening to like a Bob Applegate talk. Like,
Yep.
I love all that origin stuff. I like the criminality side of it sometimes. Like, whatever it is, always enjoyed it. And some of those guys are always a little hesitant about coming on here. Some of them say yes, some don't get back to you, I guess is the way of putting it. But this is like, it's a nice way to preserve a conversation that you don't want to lose in time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we're going to lose so much as they pass. There's more knowledge than I'll ever have passed when Don passed. It just is what it is. But there's been a lot of stories down there. I remember what's that?
I gotta get Norm on, or I wanted to do a live interview with Norm because Norm's getting older, but yeah, he's he's another one.
He's having a hard time here, and you need to get him on pretty soon. But Norm's a great guy, and some of the stuff that he knows and dealt with, shit, before I was probably born. He's just a wealth of knowledge. And of course, in my opinion, Godfather of Hondurans. A lot of people don't even know his name, but he's godfather of Hondurans.
It's probably been about a decade since I've been to his place because I was hanging out with Junior at his place around that time. But like, one of my favorite things about the old school guys is walking into a room with all thread and like melamine boards and nuts keeping everything spaced, like a dimmer switch on the side, like just that old school way of just finding ways to make this work. And it worked so well for him. He apparently kept it that way since maybe the 70s or 80s.
Yeah.
I mean,
Rob, I think you mentioned it earlier. You called them a certain box. Those and Norm still has those. What are those clear like boxes that have the lid that have the little like
Cambro?
It's not a Cambro.
Will hold boxes.
Will hold boxes. That's what I thought. Yeah, Norm still has a lot of those, and that was like what 80s and 90s.
Yep, I bought an old will hold rack from him about a year or so ago, just so I could have something that belonged.
Yeah, so you could have it. That's cool.
Yep, just so I could have his downstairs, because I had a couple of his full thread melamine racks that I lost in a flood a couple years ago because melamine and water hate each other. But I hear a rumor he's got two more, and I'm letting it go through the grapevine because they were fantastic for my mandarins. But and going with something like what you said there, Dave, is that there's a lot of people out there that really want to push and jump on this hobby for let's do better and ethics and this and that and the other thing. And I get it. I understand it. But because people like Norm, people like Mark Bell, people like, Brian Barczyk, Gary Sipperly, a lot of these big producers that were, from the early mid 80s, because they incorporated square foot gardening, and rack systems, is why you could have ever bought an AML corn for $25, or why you could buy a Cow King for $25. Now, I'm not saying that's the end all be all way to do things, but I keep trying to tell people that I look at the reptile hobby, and I'm a fish nerd. We already discovered that when we were talking about the aquarium. I started out big fish breeder, put myself through school breeding fish when I was a kid. And to me, this hobby is the reptile hobby is exactly like the tropical fish hobby, except it went through all this growing pains when there wasn't social media and you could get on there and a lot of people go, yeah, he sucks because he does it this way. But you can have a guy that likes breeding angelfish. The guy's got a 20-gallon tank with a piece of slate and a sponge filter. He breeds angelfish. And he's happy as a lark, and his fish are happy as a lark. And because guys like that are why you could go and buy an angelfish for $2.99. Then you got people that like aquariums that have got clown puke gravel and psychedelic water wheels and peeing swimming dogs and shit in it. They don't love their animals any less. They just like the looks of that tank. Then you got people that want an Amazon riverine system, and they got it's just huge. They don't care to ever breed. They just want to enjoy it. And that's fine. All ways are fine. Every way is fine. Nobody's out there trying to figure out how to torture their animal to death. It's just different ways that people approach the hobby. But that square foot gardening and the rack systems is why so many people can now really afford to be into this hobby. And when you start bitching about standards and you keep pushing for standards, and you're going to get something that's a AA ZPA standard, and every corn snake's going to need a 6-foot cage, and then you're going to find nobody's going to breed nothing. We're not, Europe goes through a lot of that already, with like their cages they sell off the market has to be X amount of inches for a leopard gecko, or square footage for a leopard gecko, or for a rabbit. I was talking to some guys that for over there at the last Tenley. And, I understand that people, if you want to do better, set a trend, be a trendsetter, do something different none of us thought about. I think that's awesome. But, this piss and match over how people keep stuff is just, it's old, it's played out. It needs to move on.
Yeah, that's been something that you do. Like you said, it's been more introduced because of like social media. And I think it's just like angry individuals wanting to be mad at something and, something they have a little bit of power over just because, like, they don't have much power in their regular everyday life.
Mm-hmm.
That might be a blanket statement. Maybe not all of them are like that, but you do see some peculiar things that contradict what they say. Like, like an enclosure for a leopard gecko has to be something like 40 gallons, like, which is quite large for just one individual leopard gecko. Meanwhile, they'll limit their.
I used to run 100 of them in a 5-foot cattle trough.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. And but then when it comes to something that's much larger, they'll shrink these parameters of the size of the enclosure in relation to the animal because it's harder to achieve. Like a corn snake or like a hognose snake, they should something maybe like double the length of the snake, or maybe even triple. Kind of easy to get because the hognose is so small. Meanwhile, you move up to like a Burmese python, and all of a sudden the parameters like, well, maybe something a little less than the length of the snake because they are so big. And so it's like, okay, well, you're not fluctuating these ideologies of the parameters of the size of the enclosure, in contrast to the animal based on the animal's needs. In a lot of cases, you're doing it based on, well, this animal's smaller. It's very easy to keep it in a much larger enclosure versus a bigger animal. Right. It's not as easy. So now all of a sudden we change the standards there. And then Rob, this too, like you talked about the ringed pythons. I assume those are Bismarck ringed pythons, and they're at the end of this trash heap. I know some people, I've seen people post about it online, and they're like, and they say it without like kind of like going into great detail, but they'll be like I don't understand. The people will be like, this is what they'll say. They'll be like, I don't understand why other people don't agree with this is how they should be kept. It looks better. So they're just saying it looks better. It's like, well, reptiles, like, I understand, like, hey, you're having a nice setup, and but a lot of these nice setups, they're more for us and not the actual animal. Right. My best spots to find eastern milk snakes is under pieces of tin, the one where these one milk snakes live, and they're always under there. It's a large tin sign off the side of a highway, and there's asphalt and gravel that's washed down under it, and a crushed Mountain Dew bottle. And that's where they like to hang out. In this asphalt gravel next to a crushed Mountain Dew bottle with dead grass underneath metal. It doesn't have to look like a pretty, like, scape of, let's say like a ravine or a meadow in Ohio. These guys like to go where it makes sense, not what looks good. They like to be comfortable. They like to have, the proper humidity, temperatures, and they like to feel, secure. It depends on the species too. Obviously, there's like things like bearded dragons that like the bask or whatever.
Oh yeah, sure.
So, Rob, you probably know Eric Erb.
Yep.
At reptilesHubs.com.
Yep.
So, like, when me and him travel together, we'll go into like a gas station and we'll be like, so where do you guys throw your trash around here? Like,
that's what we used to do.
Mattresses, and we herp them. We find snakes every single time.
Yeah, the top secret dump that everybody in town knows, but nobody will tell you about. I mean, I'm from Kentucky, so you give me a hillside that's got a shit ton of old stoves and mattresses and crap thrown off of it, and I'll pull 30 snakes off of that, out of that thing. I mean, a friend of mine and actually I used to hunt a little bit down in Florida and down on like the south side of Okeechobee. And I sent a friend of mine down there, and he sent me this picture. He found a wild-caught albino Florida king by this only house that was on this road under a piece of purple carpet. It was the most god-awful picture you ever saw, but the animal was thrilled to death on a purple carpet. So everybody knows he needs to go out and does Florida kings and get you some purple carpet, because that's apparently what they like. But
rolled up purple musty carpet.
we used to do running around and doing a little collecting up at the north of the lake and up around the Erie and Sandusky area and stuff. And you really want to get depressed, go up there and try to find any of the places we used to find snakes 20 years ago. They're gone. They're bulldozed over. They're apartment complexes now and empty shopping centers. They take there's some places up there where we used to find eastern fox snakes, and they put this netting over all this rock to keep this rock back that's along the highway, and they tangle up and kill more eastern fox snakes than they ever thought they'd save. But you can't tell them that. But I know one time up there, we found a corn bin on this lady's property. She's like, yeah, there's 2 or 3 snakes always hanging around this thing. And it was just like stacks of these bushel baskets with, corn in about half of it. It was all old corn and shit. I think when it was all said and done, we found 72 fox snakes in this building that's half the size of my kitchen. So they go where the food's at, and they go where they can get what they need, but so many people want to make that as a dividing factor and an argumentative point, and they get off on the mob mentality where everybody goes, yeah, you're right. There's not any of us out there that are, want to torture our shit and kill it. We all want to take as good care of it as we can. We just have different ideas and ideologies and how we do it and what works for them. I actually just did a little video on it on my own Facebook page because this is stupid. I did about a 30-second video of me dumping a gallon of water in one of my Ridley eye cages, my cave racer cages. And that son of a bitch got over 300 some odd looks. But everybody was telling me, like, why are you doing that? Why don't you spray them? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? Well, I can guarantee you that even though you and I both live in Ohio, Junior, that your building is horrendously different than mine. Your humidity is probably different. Moisture is different. Your caging's different. The time of day you work is probably different than mine. So it's like it's not all punched out of a mold. What works for me is not going to work for Dave. What works for Dave may not work for me and what I work with. And all my shit wants to be cold and wet. But a lot of people want to sit and argue with it because they've got a ball python or got a bearded dragon. I'm like, have you ever kept a Ridley's cave racer? They live at ambient air temperatures of 72 degrees, about a 98% humidity, but it's sometimes you just can't educate. Some people don't want to be educated. They just want to poke fun and bitch. So
some people don't think things through. Like I'll show a video of like, hey, if a hog nose chews on you, this is how to properly and promptly remove them. Then there'll be somebody in the comments like, hey, well, with my ball python, I just ran it underwater. I'm like, that's a fucking ball python. It's very different. And then I've had people tell me, well, with my hog nose, I ran underwater. It worked. I'm like, well, that's anecdotal. I was like, it's not going to work on every single one. This is a sure, fast way that will actually, I was going to, I don't know if I want to post it because it doesn't look good. I have a video of me with cold ass water, blasting it right into Hognose's face as it's chewing on me. And it was chewing on me 10 seconds underwater before I started it. And the video is about 20, 30 seconds long. Just to show that, there we go. We got one. And it just kind of happened because it started chewing on me and I had a little bit of shed. And I was like, well, I'm just going to get it wet. Looks like the shed's going to slough off. So I'm just going to put a little bit of water on it and just get it wet for a few minutes and just pull it off. And anyway, so as soon as I start putting it on, I was like, well, let me see. I'm going to just put the water on strong and see if this one even releases. And then after 10 seconds, I'm like, okay, this is one that's not releasing being underwater. So let me get a video of this. Then people are going to be online. What are you doing to that? Yeah. But it's like, well, this is why I tell you guys not to do this, Well,
a lot of people want to deal in absolutes. And I can absolutely tell you, when I got a 9-foot king rat hanging off my hand, I'm heading to the sink and blasting in the face of water. And I don't care if it's hot or cold.
Yeah.
The bitch ain't going to let me go.
It works. It works for those then. So it works for king rats.
Oh, they'll let you go in a heartbeat.
Hognose
works for everything that I have.
Hognose, man, for some reason, it just I've tried one of my worst chews, and that's right before I started with that method that I came up with. It's just pretty simple, just pulling up on the rostral scale. I had this big female that was chewing on me, and I ran her under cold water for about a minute, and then I did really hot water for about 30, 40 seconds or whatever, and she still wasn't letting go. And I eventually just kind of ended up kind of prying her off, and then my finger it was a very irritating one because it's a very big female, and it got very, very deep into my muscle tissue. So after that, and then so I see some people out there, they're like, oh, just run them underwater. And it's like, okay, that works for a lot of species. The hognose, for some reason, it doesn't work on all of them. There's certain ones that are just very determined.
Well, I've had, people tell me alcohol and diet pop and all kinds of stuff, and water gets it for me. I smack them in the face with some water. Pretty much everything will let me go. But, in the collection of stuff that I work with, I mean, if this isn't if it isn't flying out of the cage trying to chew my face off, I want to know what's wrong with it. Most of my stuff's very high strung, so when you smack them in the face with water, they're quick to want to know what the hell happened. Well,
I used to keep vodka in a spray bottle in my place, and if something held on a little too long, I give it a little spritz, just a little one.
Oh, I thought it was just a drink while you wait for him to let go.
No. I wasn't doing podcasting back then. There was no reason to drink. But so, it's another, Daytona back at the hurricane stories. Like, every person I've ever talked to that was there that weekend has their own version of stories, and they're all talking about how it was one of the best times they've ever had in their life. Like,
always
turning a good or a bad situation to a good situation.
That poor hotel was because it was like only place that was open to eat, and I mean, the reptile people just descended on them like locusts. It was the only place that had electric. I mean, we were helping ourselves. We were getting our own drinks and going in the kitchen, seeing how they were coming with shit, because they only had like two waitresses, and everybody that showed up for that show, that was the only place they had to go to eat. But it was, shit, I don't know. It wasn't on Sunday when we left because we had to go way out of town before we could even get gas. So that town had to have been out for the majority of that whole weekend.
Yeah, definitely wasn't the same thing, but COVID Tinley, what a great time that was, man. Like,
that was a weird one.
Yeah, good. I mean,
yeah.
For the people who showed up that were vendors, all the people I liked for the most part. And then like there were all these people that already booked trips to be there and still wanted to shop. Like sales were good. People were selling out of their hotel room. Everybody was happy. Everyone was going out to dinner together. Like, what a great time.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think, didn't Brian have a bunch of shit out in his parking lot? Cages and stuff like that. You go shop over.
That might have been a different one because I remember that. He had them all outside, all the old melamine ones he was selling.
Oh, not Barchek's Potter stuff. During that coat, I think everybody showed up, and I'd heard there was 3 or 4 cats out in his parking lot selling stuff and selling supplies. They were there. We were just about heading out of town when we got the phone call. We picked up a rental van and we're heading out of town when we got the call.
So I had a feeling all week it was going to get canceled, but I had already made up my mind to be there. I had some custom T-shirts printed out for that weekend. I did that Don't Tread on Me, but I did the Don't Cough on Me with Tinley Park 2020. Nice. Like, it was still, like I said, a really great weekend. And Junior will tell you, banners set up in the hallway, our hotel rooms like wide open, like really had that like old school kind of feel to it, like the early Daytona Day stories.
Oh yeah, it was just I can remember, like I said, down in Orlando, God, we'd sit out there in the atriums till like 3-4 in the morning, just talking about breeding. What are you breeding? How you breeding it? What are you doing? It was a really neat time. It was very, very different, than now. Now I'm older, and after Tinley, I tell my wife, I'm like, I'd like to sit in the lobby and bullshit around with some people because I haven't done that in a while. And then it's like, I'm old. I want to go to bed.
Yeah, I used to bullshit a lot more before I started smoking weed. Now that I smoke weed, I just go and sit in Chad Hulker's hotel room most of the night. Like, we'll have our little stories, have our time, maybe Junior stops by, but like, when you take drinking out of the equation, I'm still having the conversations, but the groups aren't as big as they used to be.
Yeah. And
sometimes,
the thing is,
go ahead.
Once in a while, I've been in Tinley, and it's like I've tried to do the bar, and I'm like, you guys got music as loud as
too much
here. You can't hear anybody. You got televisions on. Ain't nobody watching or listening to shit, and you're sitting there screaming at each other trying to have a conversation. And they can make it so much neater if they just calm all that shit down. But of course, that's the old guy coming out at me. It's too loud.
I agree. Even when I was 25, I'd agree with you on that one. Because I remember even like being in my mid-20s and going down there, my gas is like,
Yep.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. The hotel room or the hotel bar, I think it's the 9th floor at the Southeast Reptile Expo. They had it shut down the show. You missed that, but like really awesome outdoor area. Little fireplaces everywhere, little bar out there. Honestly, really loved hanging out there last time. There must have been like almost 100 people there last time.
No, really.
So next time, if you make it down there, that will be the spot to be. And honestly,
They'll be open, yeah.
In August, they shouldn't get closed by snow anyway.
Yeah.
But you were talking IHS earlier. Their 50th anniversary is this year, and it's the weekend of Bob's Southeast Reptile
Same
Expo.
weekend. Yep.
Yeah, so I've never been to it. I've always wanted to. I'm talking about maybe flying out on Sunday beforehand, meeting up with Panda, and then herping our way there till Wednesday. One night at the symposium, have some conversations, have some drinks, back in the cars Thursday morning, in the car, fly back to Missouri, pack the animals, drive all night to Southeast, and that's probably what I'm going to do so I can go visit that.
That's a young man's game. I wanted to go out there because I have never been to Ashley's museum. I'd like to see Bob's place. And, of course, got a bunch of old BOA guys going to be out there. And, it'd be a good time. But I was looking for, segueing into the Southeastern show. I was looking for one more show. I've got, 10 at least twice a week. I don't even count the ones in Ohio or twice a year. There's one in New York that I do 3 times a year, and I wanted one that was like outside of my flight path. It was outside of my norm, where I'd hopefully not see anybody other than friends that were other vendors. And so that's why I wanted to try Bob's show. And I was very impressed. I was really happy with it. I think it's got nowhere to go but up.
Okay. Is that,
for sure.
Are you talking about a show in Arizona? Or?
No, Bob's show down there.
I'm sorry, Bob's show. I thought it was
Bob's show.
I was thinking Ashley for a second.
Yeah, because you were talking about he was just talking about Bob.
Yeah,
actually, when I was down in the lobby you disappeared, Dave. So I was like, he's somewhere else. That's fine. But Ed and Emily were there, and then Chris and Adeline and Bob Vu stopped by too, and they were talking about being at Bob Ashley's, like going to his place, and they went herping and everything. And then they said it was really cool. Chris and Adeline, they were talking about like Bob is like he paces everybody because he goes up the mountain all the time.
Oh yeah.
And he says he barely is drinking any water, and everybody else has to take breaks. And he's they said it's really good herping out there. And then he has like this like little area, this outdoor area where he puts animals, and he has like snakes and like turtles in there. And there's some like Gila monsters that live in this little ecosystem that he created, and it has like a little river or little creek running through it.
That's cool.
Yeah, I dug that. I went down to we'll stay on Bob's. I went to Bob Clark's place in Oklahoma City just a few years ago, and went over to his home, and in his backyard he had a pit for, I don't know if it was Aldabras, Galapagos, but he had a couple tortoises. Can't remember for the life of me. He had his Falcon set up, and then he had like some Redfoots in his backyard. But it's just kind of cool. He was telling the story of like when I got this Redfoot, when I got that Redfoot.
Right.
I had this one for 25 years. Like you said, there are a lot of money aspects to what we do, but then there's those little things about like that Redfoot you've had for almost 30 years that you want to talk about for an hour.
Oh yeah.
There's still a passion in this, but there's a balance.
That was like Bob Clark talks to my wife every so often, and I guess he had an accident, like it's been several years ago, where somebody lost control of the car and drove into his yard and into a pond where he had a Redditor slider that he'd had for like 25 years or 45 years and killed it. And he was
my God.
All the stuff that Bob Clark has, and he was crushed because his childhood pet red-eared slider got killed in this auto accident.
That sucks.
So
that's insane. Can you remember how the guy crashed? Was he like drinking, or did he just like lose control?
I mean, somehow or other he just lost control. I'm not really sure. It's been probably 10 years ago, wasn't it, wife? 10 or 12 years ago. And guy drove through his fence, and then he built this pond and stuff for this slider, and managed to hit it, I guess, and did it in, and he was just crushed.
I'd be so pissed.
Yeah, it's kind of funny.
Yeah, it's like the most insane way for somebody's pet turtle to get killed. This fucker careens off the road.
Wasn't even crossing the road, like most of them.
Yeah.
But it's like with our old shop that we had back in the early '80s. I had a big Argentine horn frog. It was about the size of a dinner plate, and I had that
Those
thing
are cool.
for like 17 years. And I'll still run into it was like down at Babu show. We actually had a guy who grew up in my pet shop who's in with the CDC now, and he lives down there. And he was all excited because I haven't seen Sean in 30 years. And when he heard we were going to be down there, and he was going to come on Saturday, he's like, I'm a little bit afraid of the roads and this weather. And, I'll probably come over on Sunday. So came over on Sunday. It was nice to hang out with him and reach out with him. He grew up pretty close to Jim Cephalug's place at one point in time. So he got into reptiles back then. He was into reptiles a little bit when he was growing up in the store, but he was a starving college boy back then.
Yeah,
but it's neat how you can connect a lot at these shows too.
Oh,
yeah, you meet a lot of cool people.
Mm-hmm.
If I would have learned about the pet trade or just, the reptile trade in general when I was younger, I would have got into it when I was younger. Literally the moment I figured out what this hobby was or that it even existed, like Little Buffalo, New York show, started going down to Cleveland. I saw Chris Pearson in one of the messages earlier, one of the comments on the podcast today. I remember going to his table. I got this big coastal python from him, set it up in like a 55-gallon, which is way too small. Snake would break out on me, go in the closet. I was like, fuck it, you're happy over there. You'll go back when you need to. I think I got like Brazilian rainbows from him, I want to say, back in the day. And
nice.
Yeah, just a number of other animals. But, last little stupid thing, and I sent the picture to Junior, but like, we were talking about these like animals we had when we were younger. We actually stuck it out with. I bought my first boa in Madison, Wisconsin, when I was like 8 years old. And I finally found the one picture I have of it while I was a child when I was visiting my mom over the weekend. But when I became 11 or 12 years old, the snake was so big because we overfed it that my dad didn't want to take care of it anymore because he was scared of it. And I had a couple run-ins where I'd set it down on something. It would start like hissing at me, and I'd like rip my shirt off and throw it on it. Whole big thing. More snake than a little guy should have. But, that was something we ended up having to give away. Then I got another one later on. And then I think I traded it to either Tim Kuppenhofer or, again, Chris Pearson back then. Because it had a unique pastel look to it. And I wanted something they had. But, there's all these early day animals that I wish I still had. And to this day, I think the only, foundation animal I have is my first northern blue-tongued skink I ever bought.
Nice.
I've held on to it all these years. I've had it for about, I want to say 14, 15 years now. But, that one animal pretty much got me to want to have hundreds of blue tongues at one point. And
sure.
Today, at least 80 of them. So,
wow.
I wish I held on to some of that stuff when I was younger because I had a lot of really cool pets growing up.
Well, I know that I've got Taiwan beauties that trace back to the Columbus Zoo that I've had since probably 1990, maybe 89 or 90. I can remember down at the 1990 Orlando show of Wayne's that Cameron Trepedlin had brought Klaus Schultz over from overseas, and I had agreed to buy Ridley eye rats from him, which I still have Ridley eye down there that I can track back to my originals that I bought from Klaus in 90. And we were so broke. Oh my God. And what a lot of people don't realize of Ridley eye tend to be a very high male throwing species or subspecies. And I had to buy 3 males to get 1 female. And
you told me about that.
I'm like, hey, can I just buy maybe like 2.1? Nope. You got to take all 4. I'm like, oh, come on. And I think I paid like $1,000. But back then, shit, I was broke. That's the first big show. And Don said, you got to go down here. You got to do this show. We're going down. You're going down with me. I'm like, all right, I'm ready to go. I'm a big breeder. Let's go. So I load up, I don't know, 30 amylnistic corns that I got. And I'm like, oh shit, I'm gonna show these fuckers what a real breeder is. I roll in down there, and here's Gary Sipperly and Mark Bell got 28-quart Rubbermaids with 100 per box, stacked 8 feet high. And I'm like, holy shit, why am I here? I don't know why I'm here. I do not belong. But it was very humbling. It was a very humbling experience. But that's where I got my first red eye from. And I have 2.1 down there that I can track back to those animals. So it's nice when you still got a little bit. But like talking about old names, there's a lot of people that I remember from the old days. And one of my favorite animals, you know, and I do all this hissy spitty body shitty stuff downstairs. One of my favorite animals are Colombian rainbow boas. Fantastic animals. I'd do Colombian rainbows today if I could figure out how to make them leave happy at 75 degrees. But I bought 2 big old females from a guy at the time. I don't know, some people may remember in Ohio. His name was Craig McSherity. And Craig McSherity was this big dude. He was an arm wrestler. Wore these big black thick rimmed glasses. Nicest guy you ever met. But Jesus, he had to turn sideways to go through the door. And he had 2 females that he was selling at the show and at the armory. And he's like, oh, well, they're like 15 years old. They're not going to breed anymore. And I think I gave him like $100 a piece for them. And I think I bred them damn things like 5 or 10 more years after that. You know, but they're just a great snake. And probably one of the reasons why I put a warm room on is just so I can play with some of my warmer oddball species. But I got to sneak a pair of ball pythons in, so I've never bred them. So I got to try to do that. But there's a space for Colombian rainbows too.
Steve said Craig just passed away not too long ago, he believes.
Did he really? I haven't seen him since the armory. Yeah,
I don't remember.
Super nice guy. Really nice guy. Yeah.
There's a lot of
so many of those players that kind of came in. It's like, you know, there was a guy at the VFW hall. His name was Tom Dew. And Tom Dew was he was a restorer of ancient guitars and stuff like that. But Tom bred and banjos, bred some of the coolest, biggest black rats.
Oh, that's awesome.
Had all the different phases back then. You didn't think. I just found out a couple of days ago that he's since passed. And you know, and then it's kind of nice when you see somebody like Greg Maxwell. He said he wished he'd be able to listen to this podcast, but he was doing some podcast about stupid, boring, green, hangy things somewhere else today.
Green trees. You listen to it later.
Yeah, he was the one that, you know, really got everybody into the melamine caging. I know I bought a ton of them from him. Still got one of his old 28-quart Rubbermaid racks downstairs that I still use. And he got out of it for a while. I'm glad to see him back in it. He's kind of resurrected himself and getting back in it. That's cool. Always nice to see an old face, an old friend.
Yeah. There's still a lot of people still around. You mentioned Craig Pierce, Chris Pearson.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like Chris Pearson. Yep. I remember first time I ever seen him, I think was like, or at least was one of my earliest memories. He is vending at the Monroeville shows. My dad and I used to vend over there. Mm-hmm. And those were kind of like tough shows. But I remember he had like some jungle carpets. I think he had like a blood python. And, you know, I'd always see Chris Pearson around. I remember one time, like, I was buying an albino hognose from Ian Giandowski at the one Monroeville show, and Chris Pearson looked at it and he goes, "Oh, that's a good." He goes, "You're on your way." He goes, "That's a good investment." And yeah, and I seen him in the comments. I'm like, "Oh, that's cool that Chris is going to be listening and stuff." And it's like, I don't know Chris real well, but I of course know of him. I've interacted with him. I've seen him at the NOAA shows and the Armory and Monroeville shows over the last I don't know so many years. That was like when I was in my early teens. I seen Chris like early 2000s.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you have Norm on, he's got some of the old notes from Noah's back in from like the early 60s.
His stories are great.
Yeah, one of my fondest memories of the Noah showcase is when we got our van stolen after the show.
Well, how the fuck did that work out?
We went, Don and I, we were hauling his blue trailer because he had picked up some big cages or some shit from somebody. And we got done with the show. We went to some restaurant over by the airport. walk out in the blue trailer sitting in the parking lot, everything's gone. And we got a hold of Rich Clayton, who came and picked us up, and we managed to finagle our way back home. But they had drilled the locks out of the side of the van. The cop said it took them longer to drop the trailer than it did to steal the van. And, Don lost womas. I lost a bunch of breeder blue tongue skanks. We lost a ton of shit. And it was a lot of stuff that was really high end, never showed up. Nobody ever found any, nothing ever came back to us. They found a van stripped out somewhere downtown Cleveland, later that week.
Bunch of fucking assholes.
Mm-hmm. That was exciting. Nothing like coming out. Here's a fucking trailer in the parking lot. Everything else gone.
Yeah, they need more higher punishments for theft, especially that kind of shit. I hate that stuff. That's terrible.
For sure.
You still hear about theft in the hobby today, but I think only a couple stories that stand out to me is back. I think it was might have been the first ever Xanthic bumblebee that Kevin McCurley made got stolen, and I think that guy actually might have served some prison time for it.
Good.
Yep.
Not long enough.
Clark had the albino ball python stolen from him. And if I remember that case right, he won the case, and then he also got back payment for money lost for not having those animals during breeding seasons.
Yeah, wow.
Now, if that person paid out, I don't know, but that's how I remember the story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's sad, but it's there. I guess it's a sad part of it. But
yeah, the Barkers had a high end. I can't remember. I think it was a clown ball python stolen at Tinley, and it's probably from another vendor. And I think that was the last Tinley they did. They were really mad about that, of course.
Do you lose much stuff?
No, sometimes. Dude, I got 2 snakes stolen in Pomona. The couple, and I had a lot of people now I have cameras on my table. I was so mad. I called the cops. They came out. I was like, "There's cameras right there." They wouldn't release them because they said they needed because I asked Rami contact the dudes you rent the place out from. Those motherfuckers, they had a problem with me driving my little stupid go-kart around. They had their mall cops working there, or whatever the fuck you want to call them, their security. Right. And they get all over me, all over that. Meanwhile, we have somebody that stole a very expensive snake, and you got your little camera dangling up there. Obviously, we're using it, right? It's in use. You got this little dangling camera. So get your little dangling footage, and then they wouldn't. So I had to call the police, and the police, we have to subpoena them. You got to subpoena them? Just so they're like, the cops asked them, and they're like, no, you got to subpoena us.
Well.
And so then when I called, I still have this motherfucker's thing. Where the fuck is it? There's a business card from the police officer in Pomona. This motherfucker did shit.
I've hit a nerve, Dave.
There it is, right there.
Holy flashback. Oh.
Got a QR code, too.
Put that card down.
Oh, wait a minute. That's different. That's for my local police station. Never mind. These guys are cool. Don't contact them. They're fine.
If you do,
tell
them.
I don't know where this.
Tell them Jeff said you're cool.
These guys are all right. This is Macedonia. This is the. I shouldn't even cut this out. MJ, edit this out. MJ, cut it.
The last time I had a snake stolen was actually Pomona, and I want to say it was probably about 2 years ago since I've been there. But I'll be honest, it was that one where during setup, everything was cool, and you came in the next morning, it was very cold in the building. I think they had the doors open. I don't know if they had the heat on properly, but Saturday was an okay show for me. Sunday was okay, and then I left my table open for an hour and a half after the show closed. And I made all my money in the last hour of the show in that last extra hour and a half.
Wow.
But I had 3 snakes stolen off my table, too, when people were passing by.
Yeah, that sucks. Yeah. That sucks.
We need to catch these guys. And here's the thing. If they steal from you, you just gotta get them, I guess. You gotta catch these motherfuckers. I hate these guys so much.
In the old days, we used to just drag them out in the parking lot behind the building and beat shit out of them.
Good.
Good.
Too soft, we don't have it in us.
Yeah, back before, we had all this internet shit and stuff, if somebody sold you a shit animal or something like that, you eventually saw them at a show, and you'd either pull animals off the table, they give you money, you go the hell outside and settle it. And whether you win or lost, it was done. But which I think that should be when they catch them intently, everybody should get a kick in as they drag them out the door.
Yes. Yeah, they should. Everybody.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I had wondered that. I mean, you got a lot of stuff. I know Josh lost something at Atlanta.
I don't think Josh.
Oh, Josh Adler?
He said he did. Did he find it?
Well, I think it was. I don't know if I.
Oh, it's pissing me off.
Bob took a frog off his table at one point for something. I think he was going to take a picture, and then he noticed that he didn't notice, and I think he went back and grabbed like a king rat that was a little bigger off his table.
You just fucking with him?
And well, he wasn't necessarily fucking with him. I think he wanted to see if he had noticed, but by the time that he noticed, he had already had security over there. And then Bob went and cleared it all up, but it was a big misunderstanding.
That's good because I'd heard it was a king rat. So I mean, I wouldn't like that to happen to me. I wouldn't want it to happen to anybody else. But as long as he's just fucking with him, it's all good.
Yeah, it was staged.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's good. I'm glad I heard and glad he got it back because Clint was telling me that he lost it there towards the end of the day. So.
Yeah, I think it was huge misunderstanding. I don't even know if I'm allowed to tell this story. Maybe it never even happened.
Well, hey, you made me happy because I felt bad that Josh lost something down there.
That's fair, but we were talking. I'm sure you talk king rats with Josh at the show, and I talk king rats with him also. And you mentioned the Hong Kong thing earlier. I've always really loved what you and Amy have had on tables. I've always paid a lot of attention to them. It's definitely one of those like species today have got like a few grand or maybe $5 or $6 grand to not waste. I want a group. I've always wanted a group. I do love some of the
king rats are cool
right now because some of these animals are absolutely stunning. Other than the albino, I think T-Nugget albino is shit. I can live without that.
Don't be hating.
This guy's hating.
He's hating. He's throwing hate my way.
Yeah,
well, the thing I find most interesting is that I've bred those stupid things for like 30 years. And we were happy to sell a baby for $75. And at that time, I wasn't paying $2 and $3 a rat. So, it's kind of like I tell, did I sell some babies at 400 when they exploded like 5 years ago? Yeah, I did. I tell people all the time, take the money and run because it'll leave just as fast as it showed up. I think king rats are a little overpriced right now. But I hope people can find enough room for them all. I still got a shit ton of them, so it's not deterring me.
Do they lay big clutches? How big's a king rat clutch? Because they're a big snake. The adults are impressive. I like them.
Biggest I've had is 16.
Okay, so decent size like clutches.
Yeah, and the best breeding females are smaller.
Oh, that makes okay. It's kind of like hognose. Certain other species, like too big is bad.
Yeah, I mean, but that's the problem you run into somewhat with king rats. In my application, the way that I work with them is they remind me very much of like when I messed with Eastern indigos. The males will get fucking huge, and the females top it. Usually around 6, they kind of quit, and they can be a rough breeder, or they can eat the bitch really fast. Because there's a big size difference. So a lot of times you have to, like last year, I didn't have a real good king rat, but I was transitioning. I got some higher colored stuff, and that was their first year to go because my main males are up around, 8.5 feet, and big around as your arm. And,
that's cool.
And they have a hard time, I think, maneuvering with these smaller females. Or they just beat them senseless in a rack tub cage system. So I am trying to kind of transition into some younger males this year. Be the first good year I better have with them because the bitches eat too much. I think I got 14. I think 14 or 15.
Question. It's about the show, and it holds like this is actually a Josh Adler question, but you might know. What were those cooler breeds he had at the very beginning of his show, or the very beginning of his table? They were big cooler breeds with huge eyes. They were kind of like monochromatic. They were really just one color. They were really dark, but they had big heads and huge eyes.
Well, I know he had some dark. You could tell they hadn't been in too awful long. Pitus carinata.
That's what they were.
They had a couple of black, some of those, and there's something I want to play with, but I just got mucosa right now and some albinos in the mucosa, but the Pitus carinatus there's some cats out there that are really doing well with them and really breeding those things good. Price has got to come down a little bit, but the Pitus or something, like a lot of stuff, that they're so fucking prolific. When you get them turned on, their market is not going to hold.
They're cool looking. Their giant eyes
sweet.
it's kind of an appealing looking snake. I'm like, that's a funny snake. I was like, that's pretty cool looking.
You play around with a 15-foot male. They're big bitches.
They get that big?
They get big. They're
like that's gotta be like one of the longest cooler-brids.
It's one of the longest of the rat snakes. So they'll go 14, 15 foot on a male. But rarely.
Will they puff up their throats too in defense?
No, I think Susties do that more than Pitus will. Pitus will growl at you. Mine, you walk in the room, mine will growl at you like a son of a bitch. They hate you.
So where the Pitus from?
They're from Indo and those kind of areas.
Okay.
They got a moderate range, but they're an interesting snake. I don't know what their pet quality really is, but like I said, mine will, when you start messing in the cage, you can hear them. They'll growl. They don't have to look at you. They just start growling, and gurgling, and they're coming at you. Malaya. Some of them are kind of into that Malaysian and Indo area. But the Carinata, they are wicked. They are wicked cool snakes. But they're, like I said, you're looking at an animal to throw, 3 clutches a year, 3, maybe 4 clutches a year. So.
All right. This guy's got an interesting question. It sounds like it's a bit of drama. Were y'all at the Daytona when the German Parvicola guy was trying to kick the shit out of Kevin for screwing?
I vaguely remember that. I wasn't really
you vaguely remember.
Was it too awful involved? Kevin and I, well, it was all me. I can't say Kevin. Back in the Orlando days, Kevin hurt my little feelings. And so I didn't have a whole lot to do with Kevin. And I actually went out to dinner with him after Tenley a couple of shows ago. A lot calmer, still very energetic, more energetic than I'll ever be. But we had a really fun discussion about the Black Jansen eye versus red-tailed green rats, and very engaging guy. At one point in time, like I said, he hurt my feelings. I didn't have much to do with Kevin, but
Well, maybe some people just say stuff and maybe they don't actually mean it. And also, I have no idea what happened. So,
I'll tell a story. It's a stupid story. And it was true. He had a big setup down in Orlando, big, and he doing his Kevin stuff, and he had a pair of multifasciata blue tongues on his table. It was like it had been 90, 91. And I'm like, oh, those are cool. How much you got on those? He goes, you can't afford them. I couldn't fucking afford them, but you didn't have to tell me. So he hurt my feelings. But now I'm over it. I'm a kinder, gentler ride. I've moved past it. I've seen therapy. I've had therapy sessions and stuff. I'm all over it now.
Imagine I have some expensive hognose snakes. I take them to a show. People ask me, how much are those? And I just say, you can't afford them. What the fuck is the end goal here? Just to be a dick to people?
Well, Kevin didn't need my money anyway, and he was rocker right. Kevin, but like I said, I've heard a lot of stuff in his lifestyle has changed. I think it's wonderful for the guy. I haven't had tons of dealing with Kevin, but like I said, I had a really fantastic discussion with him at dinner, and if you could get him to sit still for more than 42 seconds, I'd love to have another conversation with him.
Yeah, I don't know. I've heard of stuff like that.
I think he had like some real neat shit.
He's like, that's like Ian Gandowski would say stuff like that too. I think there's just these like ball python people. Maybe they're friends and they're like we're having fun with our snarky attitudes. So yeah, I wouldn't read too much into it, especially that's a very long time ago. But like you said, yeah, right.
I took his poster off. I took his picture off my dartboard and everything last week. I'm over it.
Last week. All right. Good progress.
Yeah, you
Well, you know,
really,
shit, you can't poke fun at yourself. Who can you?
Right.
So,
Yeah.
you can't judge a book by, well, I don't know if it's a don't judge a book by its cover, but like
Sometimes you
never
can.
know who has money in front of your table sometimes. And
Oh, that's
like,
true. Yeah.
It is
I've
surprising.
told the people that most other people in the industry at the show wouldn't even talk to, and they end up being my biggest sale of the weekend.
Oh,
And
I've
I
seen
had
it.
a run in one time too with that on boas. Again, this is like a decade ago. I don't remember the guy's name, but he had a sterling boa breeding a sangria, and the sangrias were like non-existent for that mutation. And I messaged him. I said, "Wow, that's really awesome. You know, do you know what you'll be asking for double head pairs?" And his reply was, "You can't afford them." You know.
Yeah.
Maybe I couldn't. You might be right, but you know what? Maybe
I'm gonna have to start trying this line on people. Like, how much you want for that? I'm like, you can't afford it.
Well, you know,
I'm gonna add my own touch too. I'm gonna pause for a bit. Then I'm gonna go, Dick.
Well, you know, the only time I've seen that really probably truth is, you know, Eric Westmoreland, ECW. He's a good friend of mine, and all the bullshit that he went through over the scaleless corns up in Illinois. Yeah. And he got a hold of a lawyer down there that's had pretty good luck fighting reptilian cases and stuff that pop up there. And according to Eric, the lawyer said, I don't have the time and you can't afford me. I'm like, awesome. Thanks.
Yeah. So I had Eric on, you probably watched it or maybe didn't. I don't know if you pay attention. I don't know if you care. But we get done with the podcast and I bring that up to him. And he's all like, I thought the only reason you brought me on the podcast was to talk about this lawsuit and me getting out from underneath and everything like that. And I was like, honestly, I was aware of it. I just don't bring up things I think are inappropriate. I didn't realize he had it all wrapped up. So we sat after the episode probably talking for like 20, 30 minutes where he just told me about everything that he dealt with it. And it would have been a great conversation. Everyone would have really enjoyed it. But I thought it was one of those off limits things. If we talked ahead of time, I would have talked about it.
Yeah, Eric's a good dude.
You gotta go on limits, no off limits. And people will let you know if they don't want to talk about something. A lot of times people just be, I don't want to talk about that.
Yep.
Even bringing it up sometimes, though, I don't even want to bring it up sometimes. Like I said, I don't mind people saying no, but you know, for the 20 people who watch this podcast, I'd hate for one of those guys to call one of these guys.
29.
29.
29.
Wow,
29.
Don't short stroke me, Dave.
Sorry. I did one last night. There was 12 people there, and we appreciated everyone who was there.
Actually, we got a lot of interest, Rob, with you being on. We had a lot of people, because I seen on Dave's post, and we don't do the most advertising prior. So, you know, because like Dave came up and he hung out for a couple of days, and I was like, yeah, the podcasts are fun. I was like, well, we don't, you know, they don't get like too many views. And Dave's like, oh, well, you ever see look at them later? Some of them are getting like 1,000 views after a few months. I'm like, oh shit. I'm like, maybe I should be more careful with what I say. I thought nobody was really watching this shit, but now we're getting a lot of them have like 600 to 1,000 views.
Nice.
Like, oh fuck. I was saying some dumb shit that one.
I appreciate you guys having me on, because I told wife, I'm like, I don't know what it's going to take for them to ask me. I'm going to wear some booty cutters or something intently, and maybe you guys will interview me. I don't know.
This is our second podcast, buddy. The booty shorts be appreciated.
It's yours and me. Jeff's too big. He's too busy for me.
Third time.
This is great.
Yeah, it is. It is third. It is third. But shit. I'll talk bullshit anytime. I don't care if it's about me or not. Well, it should be about me. What the hell?
You're on here. This has actually been extremely awesome, Rob. You had some like really, really cool backstories. I wasn't expecting a lot of that. And you had a lot of you know, because sometimes some people ask me if stories, and I'll be like, especially on the spot, I'll be like, oh man, I can't think of a single one now. But yeah, you went through quite the, history of people you interacted with and what shows were like back and that's the cool thing about this. It is kind of preserving some history here, about how things used to be, people you've met. And it is kind of sad, because especially with no social media being back then, and people just having to take 35 millimeter photos and putting them in, scrapbook folders to show their, a lot of people and stories are going to be kind of forgotten because the stuff isn't documented, you know. And I think there's a lot of people that probably don't realize that they actually would be actually interested in the history of the reptile community because they're probably just not really thinking about it. You know what I mean? They're just like, they're newer into it and they don't ever stop to think like, oh yeah, how did this all start? Where did this date back to? Who are some of these original people? And I think it's pretty interesting, and I really enjoyed your stories and everything, and I'm glad that we're here recording them.
Well, I appreciate that. This is a lot of fun. But yeah, some of the stories are just, I mean, to have been back there, shit, I wish I'd have been a part of it back then. Talk about Don getting boxes of shit from Leaky's brother, and you didn't know what the hell you were going to open and what was leaping out, And he and a friend of his used to supply all the zoos with shit around here to see the stuff that's come and gone, from the industry. I wish I had taken more pictures of some of it because, in the 80s in the pet trade, we had some of the coolest shit out of Chile, and Honduras and places that, you don't get stuff from anymore. And, you ignored it when it was there. It just, really didn't think it was going to matter. Until it's gone,
right.
You never think it's important until it's gone.
You Dave.
Well, I was gonna say it's a somber note, but I brought it up when I talked to Vin Russo a couple episodes ago. But I've always been, I always say, morph motivated, man. I love the colors, but I'd always wanted to collect locality boas. I always wanted to be from Vin, and every year I was like, it'll be next year, and like you said. Sometimes things in this hobby that are very available are no longer available. And my motivation to expand on locality boas kind of went away when Vin had his tragedy, I guess you would say.
Yep. And I had, what was really sad is I really taken up with Vin over the last few years. Just super nice guy, super great guy. I really look forward to talking to him intently. And I had driven over there and picked up a couple of racks from him just 6 weeks or so before that happened. And he was talking then about wanting to move, he was wanting to get out of the warehouse and move to his house. He didn't know if he's going to do it in his garage or build a building out back. You just never know, Yeah. But I will tell you this. He's very secretive about his stuff. And I will tell you that it means nothing. But when you walk through there, when you walk through his facility, it was the coolest shit because it was like the evolution of reptile racks and cages throughout the decades. There was shit I hadn't seen in there for 40 years, and it was just amazing to look at some of the stuff and see how it come along.
So, and it's very rare that Vin has anybody to his building. Very rare that you even get a chance at a tour. So a very fortunate thing. It was a small part of me that I'm all not to be cocky, but I was like, I've known Vin long enough. If I was out there, I'm sure he would let me in. But even us being good friends, I was always too afraid to ask, even if I was out there, man. I was content waiting for maybe an invite, but never would ask.
Well, I took my buddy Shay with me, and I had to ask, can I bring Shay Hamper with me? So I got somebody to drive with me. And he was telling me there's a guy that was right, a couple of blocks from him. They've done business for 30 years and never been in each other's place.
Yeah,
I'm like, man, I get it.
I have been a little secretive. I will say in my new location, there has been a couple people have come out, but realistically in the last 8 or 9 years, I've probably had 10 different people come through and see the animals. So and I don't know what the reasoning for that is. A lot of times it's where I'm at. People don't visit, but there's a small part of me that kind of likes the secretive side of it. Just that's why I don't even post a lot on social media. I send people pictures all the time, but gosh, I haven't posted anything on Facebook probably since July.
Yeah, I kind of took a respite off of Facebook since probably before Christmas. I haven't put much on, not much posting in that right now anyway, but I just, sometimes the hobby, it gets acidic to look at and watch. And sometimes I just got to take a break from it.
Now, Instagram is kind of most people are especially, no offense, but older people are on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
Instagram, I'm kind of an older guy for Instagram, but Instagram, people have a lot harder time, like, because you're kind of like, you have like your own page where you post stuff, and so people can interact with it, and so there's no groups, so there's really like very limited drama on Instagram unless somebody wants to post drama on their main thing. So I'm an Instagram guy. Rob, I think you should do Instagram.
Well, I'm kind of like you. I don't post a ton of my. I don't belong to any groups. Not a one on Facebook, except there's an old Herpers group. Yeah, I like to see the pictures of the old guys on.
That's
there,
cool.
Yeah, I don't belong to any groups, any caliber groups, any Asian stuff, any bee snake groups. I figure if it's like I think we were talking about. About hatching eggs at Southeast. And I'm like, I'll post a picture and they'll go, oh, you can't do it that way. Oh, okay. Well, thanks for letting me know. I've only done it for 4 years. I appreciate you letting me know that. So I don't post a whole lot of stuff with my own collection. I don't belong to any group.
Rob and I incubate our eggs very similarly. All my hog nose, like my entire livelihood when I incubate my eggs, or they're on metal wire shelves. That's right, incubate them. And Rob does the same thing. And I've had people say that too. Somebody's like, yeah, I was talking to somebody, other hognose breeder. Like, they said you can't incubate their eggs like that. And I'm like, that's why I do my entire. I have like one of the, I'm, ahead on most of morph combinations. I have a lot of cool shit.
Yep, you do.
Obviously, not trying to talk myself up. Anyway, I incubate all the shit on shelves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, me too. And I'm like, oh, you enjoy hatching 75% males, and I keep incubating them. That seems to be working for you. But they'll get on there and they're quick tell you can't do that. I'm like, oh, okay, that's fine, good, thank you, thanks for letting me know.
It works. That was one of the things I always thought was really cool from the old Brian Barczyk videos was this colubrid room. He just stacked all the eggs on top of the rack systems.
Yep,
love that, man. And I do the same.
I stick mine up on top. I stick mine on the racks, and people go, "Well, you incubate them at?" I go, "Oh, whatever in the hell Ohio lets me do it." I mean, they might go down to 68. They might go up to 8. I sweat more about my eggs going above 80 than I do. They can go as low as they want to go. I don't care. Eggs. I've
had people message me. They're like, "Man, my hognose eggs got down to 70 degrees. Will they be okay?" And I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then you see a lot of that. You see a lot of that ball python mentality move over to it because I have this guy and he's like, oh my Taiwan beauties are 58 days. Should I cut them? I'm like, shit, no, leave them alone. Damn, I've had stuff go like 120, 130 days.
Yeah.
So unless you start finding problems with the way you're doing it, don't look for them. Like I said, I had to go back through. I was mildly kinking blue beauties for a couple of years, and I went through and had to find an article in the 90s from a friend of mine that was first to breed blue beauties. And I was like, oh, they like to be a little bit warmer. So they're the only ones I got a baby a little bit. But
interesting.
Dave, were you going to say, you're kind of quiet. You just got to lean in a bit into the mic.
Well, I know I'll lean in when I got to say something, but
okay.
Hey, man, I got those eyes patent. You can't look like that on this podcast. Oh, shit, if I remember. Oh, it was palmettos. I was going to say palmetto related. 1 year I had like almost no eye bulging with my male palmettos. And I had a couple people ask me what I did. I was like, well, I put them on a shelf in a room that was very inconsistent with temperature. I was all like, some days it was warm, some days it was cold. I was like, it was generally all over the place. Mm-hmm. One of the better years I've had for palmettos not having issues.
Yep. Yeah, I think it's a crapshoot. Like, I mean, I got a friend of mine that's big into the genetic shit and corn and all that kind of stuff. And she says that, I don't know. I'm the only cat in the entire industry of reptiles that will tell you genetics is not my strong suit. So I'm not looking to get in a pissing match. But she said her thought is that the palmettos are basically a leucistic. They're in the leucistic gene, which the bug eyes run on the leucistic gene anyway. But she's thinking that there's something that happens at some point in time in the incubation that may trigger, a bug-eyed thing or whatever. No,
that's
I don't
possible.
know. I got some Lucy. I got some Lucy, Texas. I got some mineral well stuff, and I lost my main male, and I got another male, and I had beautiful eyes for every year. And I got this other male, and I had just goddamn telescope by goldfish and everything I hatched out. So I do think some of it is genetic for sure.
There's genes that can be exacerbated or triggered by environmental factors. So somebody'd have to play around with it more. I don't like to make, of course, any of that stuff with science, while we might have, enough experience with certain morphs or seen something so much that, we probably know, but especially in these cases where I was like, I don't know if there's been enough people that, let's say, have incubated palmetto corns in this fashion. And like, if you start doing it, if you do it like across a few, like 100 eggs and you start to get some consistency, I heard somebody say they did incubate some low and they still got half and half. But yeah, there's certain Lucy's like, well, the funny thing is like leucistic hognose, they don't really seem to have any structural issues. Actually, a lot of them have good structure. Every now and then I can get one that's got a little bit of like bug eyes, but I don't think it's because of the leucistic gene. I just think it's because, certain hognose kind of lean towards that if they're, overly inbred. And I'd say the original Lucy hognose stuff was definitely a little inbred for a little, probably too long. Now they're getting outcrossed. But yeah, I mean, the thing is, it's all like some of these things are perspective. Like, let's say the palmetto corn. I mean, I'd kind of like partially at least agree with that. I could see somebody's interpretation of saying, hey, this is kind of like a leucistic gene because it's not allowing the majority of the pigment to synthesize, which is what a Lucy does. And leucistic, all it really means is just, it comes from the Greek word leukai, it means white, kind of like leukemia. It's white blood cells, leukocyte. This just means white. But yeah, I mean, a palmetto corn is, you could kind of put it into that kind of neighborhood of like being like kind of like a leucistic or like a piebald gene. But some people are pretty finicky on leucistic. It has to be pure white. But really all it means is white. And what these genes are that does this stuff is like a mutation that just limits pigment being able to synthesize. Like a true Lucy would be something like, like leucistic rat snakes, especially where you see the eye pigments change by it. Even the leucistic hognose, the eye pigments changed a little bit. And the reason for that is actually the melanocyte-inducing transcription factor defect that all Lucys have. It limits their ability where they can't, they don't have, I think there's enough proteins to synthesize pigment, but the pigment cells that make up a lot of the pigment in the eye are actually separate. And that's why they still come out with a degree of melanin in their eye and, the degree of other pigment. I'd have to read that paper again. It's pretty cool. There's this paper on leucistic gene mutations.
I'll have to take a look at that myself.
Junior, this might be a question for you. I didn't interrupt. So with the eyeball gene thing, across all species, have you ever seen any mammal species with eyeball gene or anything like that in any of these papers? Or is it
well, the melanocyte-inducing transcription factor defect was described in humans too, and they said they had like some issues with their eyesight and stuff like that. Like they were more likely to have poor eyesight. But like, I don't know. I definitely didn't go into detail and say that, hey, these humans that have this defect are bug-eyed as fuck. Look at this bug-eyed fucker. No, they didn't say anything like that, obviously. But yeah, it's the one thing that I don't really pay too much attention to mammals. Sometimes I do. Like cat mutations are interesting, especially because a lot of them seem to be like sex linked. Like even like black cats are sex linked. So like melanistic cats, like females, are more unlikely to happen versus males. So the funny thing is like mutations in mammals, like I don't know, you don't see too many like, I mean, leucistic genes. I mean, I'm not really watching too much though. What mammals have the Lucis defect. And we had a request for Brad. We could get Brad on here. That would be some interesting stories for sure. We'd have to have him like maybe, I don't know how crazy Brad will get on here. Brad would be cool. And actually, Rob, Brad McCarthy, yeah.
You have to get him about half drunk.
Half drunk?
Yeah, he talks better when he's half drunk.
All right, that could probably be arranged.
The more he drinks, the better he talks.
A few times, Rob. My dad would actually tell me stories about him as Rich Clayton, because my dad used to go up to Rich Clayton's and help him unload shipments. So my dad would help for free, sort animals and set them up. So then he would get first pick at buying stuff and like a discount. And he'd talk about all the cool stuff Rich would get. You get like sloths and you'd have cobras and all these weird like different species of tortoises and snakes and lizards.
Yeah. I think the last time we went up there once or twice years ago, and he had a dresser drawer that was full of ball pythons. It's crammed full of ball pythons per drawer,
Hmm.
and big anacondas with ticks hanging off of them, and all the stuff everybody wants to ignore, but it's part of importation. It's every importer deals with. It's not that big a deal when you realize where and how these animals come in.
Yeah.
But yeah, Rich was a character, and he loved my wife too. Woo! I couldn't turn my back on him when Rich was around.
Uh-oh. Yeah, my dad would tell me, Rich was like pretty crazy stories.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he was
Rich would be a fun one to talk to.
Yeah, I don't know if he's still alive. My dad had said the last he heard he was selling cards, baseball cards, and sports memorabilia in California, and that was a while ago. I don't know how old Rich was. I mean, he was older than my dad, so it's possible he's still around. But yeah, they had he'd tell me some pretty crazy stories about imports and things that Rich would get in trouble for.
Well, I was surprised to have seen. I think I saw Tom Nelson was up in Tenley, like time before last or last time. He was a wholesaler. He used to come and do the old shows, and he was a ex-police officer. Had a big scar in his cheek. Real nice cat. And I don't think he's doing anything with reptiles, but I was shocked. I'm like, shit, where you been for 30 years, Tom? So it's kind of interesting when these people pop up out of the woodwork every so often, and you recognize them and you kick up a little conversation of the old days.
Yeah.
But
We had
Brad would be fun. I would.
I think Brad'd be a really good one. We had John Carlson and Ron St. Pierre on that one episode. Those guys go back together, and John Carlson has some connections.
Yep.
What's banana ball python was God, who bought the original banana? Why can't I remember his name right now? Will Slaw?
Yeah. Okay. You're talking ball pythons, man. I don't know much about
all right. Sorry, well, I thought Will Slaw was an Ohio guy.
King rats will eat them. That's about all I know.
Ball pythons are fun. They're like reptile
neat.
Community pop culture.
I tell people ball pythons have done more for this industry than anything I'll ever put on the table. But it was interesting in the 80s when we had our pet shop, we used to buy reptiles that Ron St. Pierre would collect. He was collecting down in Florida, mostly stuff that wasn't supposed to be there. And we buy stuff up from Ron. He don't remember me from Adam, but yeah, that was
Back when I did the Herp House Rock podcast, we had Ron on. I think it was like a 3.5 hour episode, but he talked about that he would go in the yellow pages and find importers that went out of business, and then he would herp around their facility or and find all those animals, and then take them down to Strictly, barter or sell them, grab some new stuff, and it's a cool little grind, man. I thought that was awesome.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's just like if you want to go and collect a lot of really neat fish, go hang out in all the drainage canals of any fish farm. you can net some really cool shit out of the drainage ditches.
Good point. So right down the road from me, out in the middle of Missouri. So I set up my FedEx shipment. Truck pulls up, and then he's got a bunch of fish boxes in the back, styros. So probably about 4 miles from me, there's this farm I keep driving by that has all these lakes all over there, or not lakes, but square ponds. He's doing goldfish in there.
Yeah.
And every day shipping out thousands of these things. So I kind of want to go talk to the guy. I don't know. It'd be one of those weird things where I'd be like, I breed reptiles and a lot of them, you breed fish. You want to talk a little bit?
Yeah, there's a lot of crossover, I believe, between the two hobbies. Quite a bit.
I believe it.
I think it'd be neat. But
I always like guys that do saltwater are always my favorite customers because they're like, wow, I've been doing saltwater for years and it only cost me money. This hobby kind of makes me a little money.
Yep.
Dude, I couldn't imagine doing fish. I had up at Southwest Airlines shipping some stuff, and they have these new regulations where it's exporting overseas, where they want to, you got to fill out the IATA checkbox, how you have the animals packed, and then they have to go over this thing. And this guy, and they're new, so it's taking longer. And this guy was ahead of me shipping fish, and it took this fucking guy half an hour. So I was delayed by half an hour. I mean, that's fine. I'm on Instagram Reels. I'm messaging people and stuff. And then at the end of it, the dude finds out that the hub he's shipping to, the other Southwest hub in like Miami or near Miami, wherever it was closed on the weekends. And he's like, so I can't
Nice.
ship. Yeah. And he was asking me questions, which is funny because I was actually wearing the Ship Your Reptiles hat, but the Ship Your Aquatics one. So then he was asking me, he probably thought, I was like, dude, I've never shipped fish. I was like, I don't know. I wouldn't leave cichlids over because it would have been like 36 hours. I'm like, I don't know, man. I was like, I would just probably not do that with the cichlids. I'd probably pass. And but yeah, and even out at LAX, I'd been there. Every time I go to LAX to ship, there's somebody that brings a box truck to offload all their boxes of tropical fish they're shipping out, and it's like tons of them. It's like just one after another. The tropical fish business is like insane. It's really, really big.
And that shit is heavy.
Yeah.
When you start doing all those, there's a lot of weight, a lot of cost in that freight.
Yeah, it's a lot of work there. I do like fish. I like fishing though, and I like catching fish and nets when I was a kid. I liked identifying fish. Actually, Crystal and I, there's a creek right down by my place where as a kid I catch sticklebacks and daces and Johnny Darters. I want to see if they're still there. That's fun. I've thought about like the only thing I'd ever want to actually breed, it would be like bowfin, something stupid and cool.
Well, my favorite's Central and South American cichlids. I like the maternal aspect of the parents. But
oh, that's neat. Yeah.
Used to breed a whole bunch of them, and I could breed Oscars and Red Devils and all kinds of big shit. It's like breeding berms. And then but there were two wholesalers. There was one in Cleveland, and there was one here, and they both closed up within about 2 weeks of each other. When you're sitting here with like 1,300 baby Oscars, I don't want to trade for a goddamn can of fish food. I need to sell some baby Oscars. So I wound up getting out of most all that stuff. But
the Oscars are cool. That's one of my favorite invasive fish in Florida. When my cousin Raymond were catching gar and he pulled out like this giant Oscar that was black with an orange ring on its tail. I was like, whoa! I was like, look at that fucker! I was like, that's cool as hell.
Yeah,
and I want to. I never caught an Oscar. He caught 2 Oscars that day. I caught like 20 gar and a bunch of other cichlids.
Well, it's just neat. There's some people on TikTok and Facebook that do a lot of underwater work, a lot of underwater photography in, like Rio Negro or where they're from. And, just to see the maternal instincts and the pairing and the pair behavior and, the baby rearing, I think in cichlids is just awesome.
Do they hold the babies in their mouth?
Some of them are mouth brooders. Some of them are partial mouth brooders. African cichlids most African cichlids tend to be egg brooders. They'll hold them in their mouth. Spit them and suck them back in when there's danger. But African cichlids, they drive me crazy. They just worry me to death. They just want to fight and bitch and chase each other around. And I don't find anything about African cichlids relaxing.
No, they should be on Facebook groups.
Should be.
Sharing their opinions. Somebody gets these fish some cognitive ability to like read their brains and put it right onto Facebook groups. That's where they belong.
They're awful, but sadly they're what most everybody in this area likes. We do some wild type live bears. So, if you think the niche market for Asian stuff is small, get into wild type live bears. It's even smaller. That's why I still work a job, and I didn't make the right decisions breeding ball pythons. I like stupid stuff that flips my switch. It's like I just saw today. I read, and I was very sad that Daniel Parker said that Florida just put the banded sunfish on the endangered species list. I'm like, shit, I always wanted to go catch some of those.
Oh, shit. I'm going to look those up. Yeah. I don't know what those are. Banded?
Oh, they're no good little silver fish with black stripes, but I always thought they were cool.
Oh, yeah, they're kind of interesting.
Well, when my wife and I used to go down to Florida when her mother was alive and be like, oh, did you go and hang on the beach and stuff? Shit, no. I was up in my waist in fucking drainage ditches and canals netting fish out. And they hand them to wife to put them in the bucket.
They're pretty.
Yep. Yeah, they're cool. They're neat fish. They don't get
Dave lives in Missouri. The long-eared sunfish there are really pretty. The males, that's a gorgeous fish.
Yeah, NAMFA, I think, is doing a meeting here. It's a North American something fish association. I can't remember what it was, but there's some stunning shiners.
This one's cool. Really hypermelanistic.
Yep.
I like clown knife fish a lot too. Clown knife fish are really
I hear
cool.
They're fun to catch down in Florida.
Yeah, I'd love to catch one of those.
Oh, I'd love to go down there. I think somebody's missing the boat by by not doing tours of invasive fish. Go down there and catch peacock bass, and snakeheads, clown knives. Yeah, that's sharp there.
That's really pretty.
I like that. We got a bunch of rainbow shiners. We're hoping to make it through the winter out on the deck pond. My wife's got a koi pond out back, and we have a deck pond full of rainbow shiners. And there's nothing more stunning than a whole bunch of rainbow shiners in color in spawning season. They're out of Alabama, I think.
So they're from Alabama. You can keep them outside year round up there.
Yeah, well, we're trying. We're experimenting this year. We got a deck pond, or we got a heater in there that should keep it about 50. So being a minnow, if we keep the water running, the current going, the oxygenation up, and doesn't freeze solid, hopefully we'll let you know here and we ever thaw out.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I mean, normally I'd say anymore. We have such mild winters. I'm sure they would do fine, but this winter is not mild.
No, I've been bitching because it's thrown my those are killers. Those are beautiful.
Dave, those are by you. Dave, we need to go there and we're just going to target long ear sunfish. We're going to get little flies with a fake maggot, throw it right into the weeds.
That's fine.
In Japan they do microfishing. Have you ever seen that?
I used to I'm guessing I've seen those guys in northern Florida. They're kind of like fish herpers, but small species. And they get these tiny ass hooks, and sometimes they're catching cool stuff like the grass pickerel, but I think they call them redfin pickerel in the northern Florida locale. They're not like our grass pike up in Ohio. Yep. Actually, there's this fucking swamp by us, and we're out on there's a little boardwalk, and it's kind of like a little bit of a wildlife preserve, but there's nothing about no fishing there. And Crystal and I went out there, and we're out there with flashlights, and we kept finding grass pike. I was like, oh, there's fucking grass pike here. And they're so cool looking. The biggest one was only like that big.
Yep.
But I used to like to do that, like that. And then also microfishes catch little stuff like little pumpkin seeds and bluegill hybrids or whatever. Go creek fishing.
Yeah, in Japan, they got these little bitty fishing rods. They're about a foot with little bitty reels. And they got itty bitty hooks. And it's all about catching the littlest fish you can catch.
Oh, okay. So it's going after the littlest fish.
Yeah, littlest fish you can catch. But speaking of fish, one of my few collecting, I'll tell you the story because it shows you how stupid I am. So we're down and we're snake hunting down in Okeechobee, down around Okeechobee. Now, we have never collected Florida before, and we did not realize you should road cruise and stuff because if you're a rock flipper like I was, there ain't shit to flip down Florida. So we're running on this road that goes along this canal. This road's closed; it's all busted, all shit. Can't find nothing. Ain't found a reptile of any type. So I'm looking in this canal, and there's some real cool looking fish down there. Now I know now that they were sailfin mollies. 30 years ago, I wasn't real sure what they were. So I'm like, I'm gonna try to catch some of these fish. So I slide down this embankment, and I got this long handled net, and there's this mattress that's about sticking halfway out of the water. And I go put my foot on that thing, and it exploded. Apparently, there was some big-ass alligator that was underneath it.
Oh.
I never saw it because my fat ass was scrambling up the hill so fucking fast. He thought my ass on fire. But, yeah, that was what I was looking to catch. But my buddy's like, oh, you should have seen size that gator. I never saw shit.
Oh, man.
Losing water, I was going. Like in cartoons, my little legs just going in circles. I wasn't going nowhere. Yeah.
I was in Florida. I was probably like 12 years old, and I was down there with my buddy CJ and his mom. And there was a golf course we were staying in. We took our nets down. He wasn't as into it as I was, but man, I remember walking up to an edge of one of those ponds on a golf course, and this fucking gator took a spin and hit the water. I just took the fuck off. I grabbed my buddy. I was like, "Don't look back. Just keep fucking running." Like, it was like terrifying, man. But like.
Yep.
I think we went up to like the main lodge at the golf course, and we were telling about this alligator, and they're like, well, did you see the 9-footer on this pond? Did you see the 12-footer on that one? I was like, no. So to me, I was blown away being a Buffalo kid, but man, that scared the shit out of me.
Yep. You go to Fort Myers area, there's so many gators. I hooked into I had this big metal spoon I was throwing. I was like 11 or 12 years old, maybe 13 at the oldest. And about a 7-foot gator, maybe upwards of almost 8 foot, grabbed it, and I set the hook, and it was ridiculous. This thing started barrel rolling on the top of the water. My mom actually got the camera. She said, "I thought you had a big fish." I'm like, "What fish in this golf course pond would be that big?"
Right.
It looked like I hooked into like a human, the way it was thrashing on top of the water. It was like, then I just started slowly cranking and reeling it. And it just kind of, I mean, obviously it was underwater, so it was a little easier to pull. It just kind of came, it was kind of just swimming in the direction of I was pulling it. Then I got about like 4 feet from shore, and it was just like laid at the bottom, and I couldn't budge it. So I just kept pulling until the spoon popped out of its mouth, which was good because I don't know, I couldn't have done anything with this gator.
Well, one of our trips down to Florida, we went to Tommy Crutchfield's farm when he had all his alligators and shit down there. And my wife was pregnant at the time, and we were out, and he's got this big fucking pond, and we're walking over, and he's like, well, come on over here, let me show you this. And he's like, come on, don't be scared, come on. And he's standing on the edge of this thing, and I'm dumb enough to be standing right there next to him, and there's a handful of other of us standing there. And my wife's like, I'm going to stay back here by the fence. And apparently it was a very large xanthic, I want to say Nile, and that exploded up out of there. I never saw it once again because my flight response was quick and my fat ass was hauling ass. I never saw it. I saw a little bit of a shadow of something I thought might have been it. But man, that bitch was fast. It jumped fast and hard and scared shit out of me. But my wife's like, oh, yeah, it's big. It's yellow. It was really cool. Should have seen it. I'm like, I didn't say shit. I was running, saving my ass. But Tommy got a real kick out of that shit. Watching us all get scared and run.
It was a few years ago, but I got to go to Tom's place one time. I don't know if you're talking about the one where it's the pink house. He's got some of the ponds out front. Maybe he had one before that. But
had a big alligator swamp in the back that was had 300 alligators in there, some shit.
Yeah, no, it was cool to go down there. He showed the main chains off. He had a bunch of side necks. Overall, he had his big setups in his yard for all his different animals. It was cool to be able to say I made it down there at least once.
Yeah, same here. I mean, I got to see a big chitter. I've never seen a big one before. He had one. We were down there, a big, I don't know what their common name is, leatherneck turtle or something. It's like a big soft shell turtle on steroids. It was about 3 foot. It's huge. But, I try to appreciate what everybody does. Just like down there at the Southeast show at Bob's show, I always go around, try to take pictures of stuff that caught my eye, down there. I never spotlight my own shit. Oh, it was neat as hell to see a tent turtle. I don't know when I've seen a tent turtle last. That was cool to see, so I always appreciate what other people have got as best as I can. And even ball pythons. I show pictures of ball pythons too. I give them love.
Oh, there's some cool ball pythons. I got a video of one on
some wicked shit out there.
Yeah, Rice Reptiles. They had a super GHI clown combo, and it was really high gravelly purple. I was like, that's a cool ball python. I was like, I like that a lot.
Yeah, I posted a picture of one that I saw down there, and I spent some time talking to Dennis McNamara because I like that.
Oh, yeah, Dennis.
That Dennis has stuck with what he likes. He does Macklots and brown waters and cool shit that a lot of people haven't done. And he's stuck with it. And I always appreciate that people, you can go for the money, but when you have the other stuff that you keep because you really like it, that speaks volumes to me that you do well with your stuff and you enjoy the hobby that you're in. And I posted some picture of ball python down there that caught my eye. And he goes, hey, he bought that from me. Well, cool. It was cool. It was a wicked ball python. I can't tell you what
cool.
it was.
There's some cool. Well, the one thing is there's so many cool ball pythons. When there's something that really sticks out, it's really cool because there's so many, morph combinations. But yeah, it was a super GHI Mojave clown, something else. I think it maybe had leopard in it. That was a neat ball python.
Well, I do applaud a lot of the ball guys now because it kind of seems like they've kind of shunned away from going with the goofy little hobby name, and they're almost giving you more of a pedigree. And this is what's in the animal. Now, can you replicate that? And I like to tell this real quick story because if I hadn't heard it from, I may have told Dave, I'm not sure. If I hadn't heard it from the 2 guys I heard it from, I'd tell you you're full of shit. And Brad McCarthy bought a pair of het albino tangerine Hondurans from Norm Dam. All right. Norm Dam's trustworthy guy. Brad McCarthy, trustworthy guy. Brad raised them up. He bred them. Didn't get nothing visual out of them. Got beautiful tangerines. Didn't get anything visual out of them. Brad bred those bitches 10 years before he got a visual albino.
That's crazy.
So, genetics just aren't as simple as a lot of people throw out there. And had anybody else told me that story, I would have said, you full shit.
No, you can run into the statistical like anomalies and stuff where it's kind of like going like, to casino and like, playing, let's say roulette and winning like 20 times or craps. Like, it's possible, it doesn't happen often, but no, those statistics do show up. They are possible. While rare, it does
roll
happen.
The dice. Yep.
Yeah. So, Jeff Sr., when I picked up his corn snake collection years ago, there was a scaleless anearthristic male in there. And I bred it to a female, made hets. I want to say I held back like 3 or 4 of them. I bred them, no scaleless. I bred them again, no scaleless. Bred them again, no scaleless. I'm like 3 seasons and I haven't made one. I'm like, I fucked myself. Something happened. I put a different male in. I don't know what happened. Finally this year, and I want to say I must have been between the 3 females, I bet you 60 to 70 eggs, visual scaleless. The het never made one. This year, 1 clutch, all scaleless. It was a small clutch, all scaleless. But held them all back because I put so many years of effort into it. But one of those things that I doubted myself. I was going to sell those females off this year.
Yep.
I thought I made a mistake, but it just didn't work out.
So, long story short, if you buy animals from people that you trust, the people that have been doing it a while, and have not given you, and it doesn't pan out the first go, doesn't mean the guy screwed you. It just could be the odds. Is it normal? No, not by any means. It's not normal. It's just like this year, I'm about ready to pull the plug on this Sunglow Chinese Beauty project that I've been working on because for lack of a better term, I'm wondering more and more when I'm messing with it, am I dealing with a lethal gene here? Because of just not getting every baby I hatch has got failure to thrive. Just doesn't do well. And so I knew the originals that I got were tight genetic wise. So I found a normal, I crossed them out, I brought them back in. The het female, I bred one of the het females to the founder male this year, so I was going visual to het and through 6 visuals. I should have thrown a few hets in there or something through 6 visuals. And they're all doing just as shitty as they've done before. A lot of people aren't going to, a lot of people won't tell you this, but, I've been in this too long. I ain't got nothing to hide. I mean, we all don't do great. Not every project pans. And like I said, I got probably about 1 more season that I'm going to try this project with. And then if I don't get anything, I sure shit ain't going to sell it. If it's a garbage line of animal, it don't need to be on the market. I'll put its ass down before I put it on the market. Get rid of it.
Yeah, you sell them as pets, either the garbage bloodline, pet only, $100.
Yeah.
Garbage beauties, buddy. Garbage beauties.
Nah, they can die in my basement and I don't have to hear anything out of it.
Yeah, that was, probably one of my favorite things that I've seen in a long time for a project was, and I can't remember the breeder who made it, but he made scaleless blood pythons.
My God.
Wow.
And he made these things, and as soon as he
that was so weird.
This project's not going to go anywhere. I'm selling it all off right now. It's over. That's not what the objective was when I did this. And, with blood pythons, and I always say with the ball python, they're always in shed. And because they're always in shed, they're just a pain in the ass, and in my opinion, kind of a fail to thrive.
Scaleless blood might do well, though, Dave, because they just sit there.
Blood pythons usually take 3 to 6 months to have their first shed. I'd have been very curious if the original scaleless bloods took 4 to 6 months, or if they went into the rapid shed cycle early on.
Yeah, it would be interesting.
Big shed early, would that affect them?
One thing I would like to say, it's on topic, but the title of this episode is Reptile Community in Ohio and its Deep History. And Rob, you talked about the deep history and a lot of stuff for about an hour plus. And the great thing is we usually never talk about the actual topic in the title. This time you helped nail it.
Nailed it.
Dave.
Nice.
No. Do you want to know why?
Why?
Because MJ picks our titles. He's like, hey, man, you need to pick a title this week. And that was my title. So that's why it happened that way.
Yeah, well, one time I did pick that title, and like a couple times we did it, we didn't. But yeah, sometimes like because like MJ's like he's got to kind of guess because we're having this guest on, and he's like, all right, what are you guys gonna talk about? So he's like trying to guess. It's kind of fun. It's a game, and people don't understand why things are happening. And this is why these things are happening, kind of.
Right. Yeah. I like what you guys got going on. It's very neat. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. Yeah, this is a great one. I love the like having you on is spur of the moment. Yeah, because you know, John Barry unfortunately wasn't able to make it for this one. We're gonna have him on later. He's got a new book out.
Cool.
And also, real quick, we're gonna keep talking for a bit, but I do have a live auction on Morph Market. So Morph Market lives it's a new thing where you can actually join. It's a live show on Morph Market, kind of like how we're talking live right now. And you can bid on stuff. And I'm going to be auctioning off hognose. That's tomorrow at 8 p.m. it starts. And there's going to be a lot of hognose snakes because it's me. So if you're on Morph Market, check it out. I'm also going to be doing like some type of giveaway thing. I don't know how it works yet. You'll find out tomorrow. I got to think about it.
So Rob, you know, with the changes in the market and now these live auctions becoming a thing, how do you think that's going to affect the market long term, or do you think this is just a fad?
It's really hard to say. You know, when COVID hit, a couple of people tried to put out those live auction sites, and my wife and daughter did one of those where I guess you could go in a room and there was a whole bunch of breeders. You could pick who you wanted to go and see and talk to, and it was a lot of fun. Wife and my daughter did very well with it. I think it scratches the surface. I think right now the market I think is really suffering from way too much supply and not enough demand. But in these auctions, even though I see some stuff sell like dirt cheap, and a couple of people I know doing a lot of Palm Street stuff, and they're selling things.
Palm Street.
Yeah, they're selling things in up my alley that I sit there and go, shit, I could buy that, put it on the table and flip it. You know what they're getting on it. So I guess it's going to depend upon what percentage you want to make, or how or what value of your animals. Now, a couple of people I'm talking about, they're just flipping. They're not like you, Junior, where you're breeding it. You have an idea of what you got, what you want out of it. It does allow you to reach an audience that maybe you're not going to normally reach. That might be in areas where there are not a lot of shows, or that you never go. But it's probably the only thing that I see overall with the market, and I wish some of the cats that do it would start looking at some other avenues and ways to move their animals. It's like when I walk into Tenley on Friday to set up, and I see 50% off or buy one get one free. I mean, shit, the show ain't even started yet. Where I can walk around and buy a ball python off a table. Now, first you see a ball python on a table at $20. First thing out of somebody's mouth is, you want to take 10. All right. Do you want to waste your time making that $10 sale, the $15 sale? So what I think that people might need to look, and I'm not saying that I got the end all be all idea, but so many of the shows are full of small time flippers or regional flippers. They do a lot of shows and they want, smaller amounts at a reasonable price. So if I did crested geckos or I did ball pythons, and I know basically what I'm going to get out of my shit, to me, it would seem more worthwhile to me to put a stack of 10 crested geckos on the table with a rubber band and go, this is my wholesale purchase, and this is $120. And not only do I get a better, sale, because probably I'm going to take a card and I'm going to lose 3% or whatever. My transaction is worth more than me selling one animal at $12, or me putting one animal on my table at $12, and the first thing comes out of somebody's mouth is, what you willing to take? Well, if you're looking for wholesale and you want to take it to flip it, well, here's a stack of 10, no picking. You can go through, make sure they're all alive, got tails, but they're $12 a head, take 10. Or their ball pythons are, $12 a piece, take 10. And it's not setting a price precedent on your table. And I think that's what some people, your animals are only worth what you put on them, and you think your animal. Now I understand with the ball pythons, a lot of problem is you got so much incomplete codom shit, and you get all this cast off crap that they don't want to fool with. It's not worth any money. I get it. So if you haven't developed it locally where you can call somebody up and go, hey, I got, 10 pinstripes. You want to buy them for $12 a piece. I wouldn't want to put them on my table at 20. I don't get it. I think I'd want to go with a little bit bigger transaction and move a quantity of animals out. That's what I would rather do. I'd rather empty 10 cages, at $12 a head than empty one at $12. But
yeah, when stuff gets so low, it's like, it's kind of the point where it's like, if you need to move it wholesale, but I don't know. Some people they're fine with making a little bit, or there's kind of hobbyists, or they're like, okay, I have some stuff I make more money on, but some of it. My first thought is when I see something on somebody's table, it's like the first day it's like 50% off. I'm just like, this motherfucker.
Yeah,
that's my first thought. I'm like, God damn it.
It sets price precedent. And to me, I don't understand it. Why you want to mark your shit down for the doors even open
to piss me off. They're trying to piss me off.
Why are you even in this?
Piss me off.
I think there could be some more creative ways that you could do it. Still get your point across. Still move your animals. We've all been to Tinley. How many of the people in Tinley are regional flippers wherever they come from? Sunday, it's all, how low will you go? How low will you go? Will you take $12 for 2 cresses? No, but I got a stack of 10 here. I'll take 124. But it will take some time. That's a whole different way. But I think people need to be a little more creative and put a little bit of thought, or don't produce so much.
Exactly.
That's what's killing everybody. If you cannot, if you don't develop a wholesale market, or people in your area that will take your extra, your cat, whatever you want to move, and if you can't, this is the way I look at it. Now, I don't look at myself as a large scale breeder. I probably run about 300 animals and that's it. But there is nothing that I produce that I am not willing to sit on for a year until I sell it. I don't produce that much, so if you produce more than you can afford to hold, then you need to cut your breeders. You need to cut your numbers down. I don't care what it is. If it's blue beauties, cut your numbers down. Or don't bellyache when the price drops. Blue beauties are going to take a major hit this year. Because everybody was watching everybody selling for $300 and $400 a piece. All right, well, let me jump on. Let me get 10. Let me get 15 females. Well, when that market is at 150, or 175, which is where I think it will be this year. I've got, 7 females. I'm good with that. Shit, I'll sell them for $99. I don't care. I like breeding the species. As long as they can pay. Cool. As long as they can pay and allow me to afford to keep them, I'm good. But I will never be, somebody that cuts a market or drops. That's just not. Even when I buy stuff from somebody, and I bought some stuff from you, Jeff. Shit, I'll market higher than you. Yeah, I'll market higher than you've got it at, because I do not want to affect a market that I'm not in.
Well, I had some extra lower, and so I even told Amy, I was like, "Well, this one I'm wholesaling you." I was like, "It's marked 120." I was like, "This kind of low." I was like, "You could actually put it like 150 or 180." Honestly, I was like, "This is a pretty." And the thing is, it depends how many you have. I have I'm kind of competing against myself sometimes, because I go, I have these hognose, I have this hognose, I have this hognose. So I'm kind of competing against my own hognose, because there's only I have these price ranges for different people, different projects, but I don't know every time what exactly everybody's going to want. So, right. But 2 things real quick. Somebody did ask. The live tomorrow is at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then, Rob, somebody asked this one, really good question. Have you seen any species? I know you have. And my dad, especially like tortoises, and there's I think you mentioned a few, but are there any species in particular that you've seen back in the day that just don't exist in the hobby, or almost non-existent, or you can't even own them? Is there anything like that you can think of?
Well, I like to tell people this, particularly when it comes to tortoises, because it makes them cringe. I used to sell pancake tortoises, Egyptian tortoises, and Homopus, the Madagascar spiders. I used to sell them for $25 a head and made money.
That's insane. You just pissed off everybody that likes tortoises. That's cool.
I mean,
man,
all the shit out of Haiti. I mean, an animal that I used to love, which probably helped spur my love of my Asian stuff, are Haitian boas, because they slime and shit all over you. But there's so many cool things out of Haiti, and a lot of the gilla wasp we used to see out of Haiti, and the tree boas, a lot of little trope boas, little dwarf grounds. They used to be really prevalent. Now you can't find it. The Melanurus, the ones that you can find the orange and a real neat, got that yellow tip on their tail, kind of like some of the vipers. Those are gone. Those are gone from the hobby.
Mm-hmm.
One that I am scaling back on. I'm actually letting my colony die out. Are rubber boas. They used to be everywhere. Nobody really breeds them. I bred them for 35, 40 years. I collected some of my first ones with Lloyd Lemke as babies out there. And, those aren't as prevalent as they should be, but they're not a high production, high volume animal. Anything out of Chile. There were so many really sharp species of lizards out of Chile when that was opened up. And Chile's got such a wide and diverse climate and topography that they just have such a wide array of shit. And it's back then when that stuff was coming in, nobody really thought or cared about breeding it. It was going to be there forever. But I tell people now, because I see that now, and if you watch the markets and you watch the wholesalers and you watch the stuff comes in, there's a definite trend when stuff comes in. And it's just like right now, if you're a glutton for punishment and you want to work with something that's tough, right now, bush-veiled frogs, we never saw them on the market. They have flooded the market in the last year and a half, which means they'll disappear. They're at the precipice right now where they're really reasonable, really cheap. And you watch, they'll cut off and disappear. And the other one is an animal that I don't personally feel should be in the hobby, are dragon snakes. And,
those are cool.
The dragon snakes are wicked, but if you haven't got tadpoles and frogs, and then you can get them on the fish a little bit, but they don't do very well for very long on fish. And the problem is nobody here has really kept them very, very long to determine, okay, does the toxicity of, let's say, a green tree frog, does that not match with a dragon snake's digestive system, and over time eventually dies? But it's there's so much stuff that comes and hits the market, and you never see it. I'm actually waiting, and I was so pissed that I didn't get any. There's I'm probably mispronouncing it, but the Tragoponus wagmana, there's bushvelds, and they are everywhere. They've never been the hobby that I've ever seen. I've been in this a long time, and now they're like $50-$60. And so usually they trickle shit in a little bit at a time, and then when the sales kind of start drying up, they hammer the market, they flood the market with a bunch of them, and then when nobody wants to pay any money, they'll cut them off, or they're not collecting in that area. But there's a little legless lizard that's found in a very, very small part up around Tanzania, I believe. That's called like a Tragoponus wagmani. And they came in for about that long, probably about 3 years ago. A buddy of mine got a couple of them, and I just loved them. Philippe de Beaujolais got some of them, and Rapashi was working on them. I've since reached out to them, and they said they both coughed up the project. I don't know who has it now, but such a neat little animal. So if anything hits the market and you ever stumble into anything that you think, man, that's really cool, I've not seen that before, is when you better buy it. There was a bunch of shit that just came out of, was it the Seychelles a couple of years ago? I've never known, or Martinique Island. I've never seen them collect anything out of there. And there was a shit ton of lizards hit the market all from that area. Whether they're legal or not, to be completely honest with you, I could care less. They're here, and it's an opportunity to get a really neat animal that you could possibly establish in the wild. And you may never see them again.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. You just gotta watch the trends.
Yeah, it is cool. Like, when people do get these species like this and propagate them. So because like you're saying, like spider tortoises used to be $25. I think a spider tortoise now is like maybe 2,500 at the cheapest.
Yep.
Egyptian tortoises are now, ESA, and they're very limited. Pancake tortoises are a little expensive, but they're not too bad. And people are producing them, and they're available at shows. So it's cool when and frogs are a tough one to establish because they require so much more maintenance and attention. I would like to see those rain frogs, those bushvelds are really cute. That's a really neat species. It'd be cool if somebody figured out how to propagate them. Because like you're saying, when the stuff comes in and it's cheap, people are like, well, why even breed it? It's kind of there. It's available. It's easy to get. People just flip them, so there's no need to breed them. But yeah, it's pretty nice when people do keep these animals, and kind of like one would be like monkey tail skinks. They stopped importing them, but there's enough people propagating them, and they don't have many babies. But they're available.
Yeah, I was speaking to Nick Stacy out in the Texas area, and he does those antilopus toads. I think he does the purple ones, or it might be yellow ones. Little antilopus toads, and does really well with them. And I was kicking around some ideas that I would have if I worked with bushveld frogs. No, I don't work with frogs, but I think a lot of it, that to me, a lot of the fun of some of this stuff is that an animal is put on this world, and I don't care what animal it is, in my opinion. This is my opinion. An animal is put on this earth for one reason. That's to procreate a species. That's it. That's what it's here for. That's what its life goal is to procreate a species. I don't care if it's cat or fish or whatever. And everything that they do for a reason. They do it. And so, when you start looking and figuring, okay, why is this animal doing this? Or why is this animal doing that? It's like I had a buddy of mine that bred prehensile tail skinks for years. He had the hardest time with them, They lived together in pairs for a while, and he wasn't really happy with overall. And I told him, I got a buddy of mine that breeds parrots out the ass. And he suspends these cages from the ceiling, and they're made out of wire and wood. I go, if you're having a really hard time and missing females that are ovulating and shit like that, get that, hang it in your garage, and put a male in between each of your females. I will guarantee when that female ovulates, they're going to be right next to each other in that cage. They'll tell you when they want to breed. You won't miss them. And he bred shit out of them for years when he did that. To me, a lot of the fun of it is trying to figure this shit out and figure out a way to make it work for you, and why that animal does what it does.
Yeah, that's a really good lesson. That's kind of like what you basically listen to your animals. Your animals will signal stuff to you if you're paying attention. If
you're watching, they'll try to tell you everything. You just got to be smart enough to listen or pick it up. But
we were talking monkey tails with a breeder one time, and I always forget his freaking name, and I bring him up all the time. But he talked about the body language of the animals in the cage when he knew there was a baby in there. The adults are a little more aggressive, a little more standoffish, and I thought that was really unique. And like you said, there's not a lot that we haven't figured out in this hobby, and some things took us a little longer than others. It's a little disappointing, but I'm really tough with it because I believe if it's not broken, don't fix it. And I've tried fixing it a bunch of times, and I just break it a lot more. But there are some things that I know we can improve on. I don't really have anything in particular, but bullets pythons are definitely one of those ones that threw us for a loop for a long time because we treated them like every other python. Yep. And then the moment we paid even a little bit of attention, we realized what they needed, drops in temperatures, and now we're successful with them. I've seen a lot of people in the United States get clutches.
Well, it was kind of simple. It's kind of like actually the angle you take with a lot of species when breeding success isn't that good. It's you use more males out of female. If I have female hogs that are non-receptive, it's more males. And so it's, sometimes things are simple and just overlooked. And that's what it sounds like. The majority of the bull and python success is just like they use multiple males, and then they get it's extra stimulation, and it gets the female probably more, excited, and probably induces maybe, hormonal level changes and follicle development. But really what it's doing is like it's pitting the males against each other. It's getting them, stimulated. And then the more dominant ones are, breeding. So, and that's like, so.
Well, I think they're also they're very in tune with what they put out there in their DNA. Their main thing is to procreate the species. So I have a friend of mine that does a lot of Leachianus geckos, lots. And, he might have a pair together for 4 or 5 years, and they do great, and they produce, and they're fine. And then you go in there one day, and one of them's got the tail ripped off of it, or one of them's beat to shit, he pulls them out, and he'll get them back together, and he puts them back together, and they're okay for a couple of weeks, and then does the same shit. Well, I'm a firm believer that animal knows that pair has enough DNA. They have produced enough offspring that their DNA is well represented enough in their mind that you need to get the hell out of here, and I need to find another mate. There's a difference between bushes and trees and a cage. They can only run so far, in a cage, whereas, they might whip the shit out of them, and the female goes on and leaps into another tree, and then another female will come in, and then all of a sudden that pair may produce just great for the next 4 or 5 years, or in the cage or the tree, and then the same shit's going to happen. I think animals do what they do for a reason. You just have to figure out what it is. And I think a lot of things too with people is like I was talking to a guy, and I'm piss poor with names, and I can't remember his name, but he's bought some old world stuff from me, and I did not know until recently that he was just mega shit tons deep into Brazilian rainbow boas. I mean, that's his gig. Got a bunch. And one thing that I decided in 2006 was I was tired of jamming square pegs into round holes because I was trying to, breed Burmese and carpet pythons and cut my room off, and the other half was Asian stuff and shit. And it was a lot of work. And he's the last couple of times I met him, and I saw him down in Atlanta. He's like, man, I think I'm going to get rid of these Chinese beauties. I just can't get them cold enough. And I go, you're not, as long as you're working with them in any proximity of these rainbow boas, you're not. So you will find in my facility, everything's got to like the same shit, if it doesn't want to fit that's why I do rubber boas. That's why I do black milks. That's why I got a twitching wanting to do sand boas again. Vinny Russo said, well, Russian sands like to get cold and hibernate. Well, shit, let me have some Russian sands. So I'm raising some of those. Those are cool. But they fit, in the same, my entire room all likes the same shit. And I think as you get older, you try to figure out. And so like what I was going to get to is in Atlanta, he came up to him and he goes, I kind of did what you said. And I got some vine snakes, some of the big rodent-eating vine snakes. He goes, those are really bitching cool. And I go, you know what? You'll have a hell of a lot better luck with them because they're going to fit exactly exactly what your rainbow boas are going to have. And you're going to fight and work a hell of a lot harder or eat less now that you're going with stuff that wants the same stuff. So I think everybody kind of tweaks and changes your directions from time to time.
It's what I always tell people, it's very possible to have a very diverse collection, but they have to have very similar settings, like you're saying.
I agree.
Yeah.
You can't, even me talking about how I'm trying to cool down my colubrids. There's an inconsistent temperature this year. Now, when I talk to guys like Chad Fuchs, who talks about he does more light cycling than temperature cycling, I hope it's still going to be a good year. But anytime I do something different that I haven't done it the year beforehand, I always panic. And that's, again, situational this year.
Well, I'm a big believer of food and water triggers. And then that actually came on from me slinging pop for so many years. Because in the summer, when it's 100 degrees outside, and I've slung 500 cases off a truck a case at a time, and sweating my fat ass off. Last thing I wanted to do was go in my room and do anything. I didn't want to feed shit. I didn't want to water nothing. I want to do nothing. And so inadvertently, my animals would, I would feed maybe once every 3 weeks or so. And in the summer, my animals will trim down a little bit, get in a little better shape, lose a lot of that fat from the egg laying. And then when my season of Pepsi Cola would ramp down, usually about August, September, then it's like, okay, so now I'm slamming my animals. I'm feeding them hard. I'm ramping them up to get ready to cool them down. I'm giving them tons of water, giving them tons of food. And I really think the temperature deal a lot of times is just for a breeder to get a break. And I'm enjoying my break. My room's asleep down there. But I don't, the 1 year I probably had one of my better years. I don't think I cooled shit down for more than 2 weeks. I gave up and I brought everything up because all I was doing was keeping it down and skinning it out.
Fair.
This person asked if anybody remembers Chris Estep of Reptile Haven.
I remember the name. That's it. But I definitely know the name. But
I was looking at pictures of the Pitus.
There's a bunch of different Pitus out there.
Yeah, that's what I noticed because some of them don't have the big eyes. That one that Josh Alder had was hilarious looking. Their eyes were so big and their heads were big. It was a funny.
I think a lot of that was that he was probably at a healthy weight, for a wild caught Pitus, original wild caught. He was a healthy weight, but they're got big eyes, and I mean they're a sight hunter. So they're something. Yep.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
That looks like a fuscus there. There's Pitus carinata and mucosa and multicincta and fuscus and nigra something or other, nigra marginata, which is the green one everybody's trying to get. But all it's going to take is a handful of guys to get an established group in here that will live, and then we'll be swimming in Pitus. We'll have all Pitus you ever want. But mucosa are probably one of the main ones that's been around for a while. And I'm telling you what, there's some wicked ones over in China. You need to get them in here so I can get them.
I'm seeing if I have the video.
Yeah,
there it is.
Yep.
That Josh's table.
Mm-hmm. Yep. They're they've got some pieds and Lucy's and a couple different forms of amelanistics over there in China. There's a lot of really wicked mucosa over there. And the mucosa don't get quite as big. Males go, I think most of my males are like, 8 to 9 foot.
It's pretty good size still. That's pretty good size.
They're kind of raily. They kind of remind me of a blue beauty. They're raily.
Yeah.
I had the biggest blue beauty I've ever seen at 12'6".
That's pretty insane. That'd be very cool to see because I've heard they could get that big, and I didn't realize that. Like if you would have asked me years ago, I would have thought they got like 8, 9 tops.
Yeah, I have a lot of people that tell me. Yeah, I had a lot of people that tell me their males are 10 foot, and I'm like, shit, that's average. That's an average. That's an average male blue beauty. I'm not being facetious. That's an average male blue beauty's 10. Females would go about 8, 7 to 8.
What's the max eggs you get on a blue beauty, like a big female?
I think the most I've ever got is like 17.
Oh, that's pretty good size clutch.
Yeah, but they're I'm probably going to play around with double clutching a couple of them this year, which is something I rarely do. I don't double clutch for anything. If it does it on its own. But I might play around with some of it because that's, I got to try to figure out. I'm so in bed with the Chinese beauties, and the Chinese beauties are probably one of the lowest egg producers out there. And so I got to figure out how to up egg production a little bit because their average is like 8, 7 to 8. So I think I'm going to try to double clutch a couple of them this year to see if I can. I double clutched some last year and wasn't planning on it. So they'll do it. But so we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, very cool stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thanks, Rob, for hanging out, sharing some really cool stories, answering questions and everything. We're at 3 hours, so we're probably going to cut it here. This has been a very good one. We're probably going to have you on in the future. Especially, I want to get David. I talked about this. Like, I might do just an in-person interview because I don't know if like Norm wants to come on, a podcast. But I really want to get Norm, share some of his stories because like a lot of information he has, like it's of course very important to the history of the reptile community. Again, like I think a lot of people don't even realize that this stuff is that interesting. They don't, and once they start hearing it, like, oh, this was actually really cool.
Yep, for sure.
So thanks for being on the show. Chatting and everything. Thanks, Dave, for help coach. And actually, it's Dave because we needed somebody last minute. Dave's like, "What about like Rob Zerkle?" I'm like, "Actually, that seems like a good idea."
Shit, I'll always talk. I'll always yak.
We'll do it again for sure. We spaced it out a little bit though, man. It makes conversation better. It's you only have so much as somebody for so long. No,
that's true. That's true. I only got so much good to say. Then the rest of it's all made up.
We should actually if we have Brad McCarthy, it'd be great to have with Brad McCarthy because I need somebody else to help reminisce. I think because I've known Brad for like a long time, but it's kind of like it's just him seeing me at shows and him watching me age from a kid to older.
We've all watched you. We've all watched you grow up to the strapping young man that you are today.
It's like I was talking to Mark Bell a few years ago. It was like 2-3 years ago. I said something. I was like, I was like 36. I was like, 2 years ago. He goes, God dang, you're 36? Like, yeah. And he goes, you just made me feel real bad about myself.
Much nicer than the last thing he said to me.
Can you share that? What was it?
Oh, well, I ran into a really massive speed bump that I did to myself here and basically wiped out about $100,000 worth of animals.
Oh, no.
And I was basically ready to get out of it. And he came to me intently. He goes, yeah, I'm not going to let you get out of it because you're the only one stupid enough to keep breeding this cobra food. That was the last thing Mark told me.
Interesting.
So I took that as a compliment.
Yeah. Very inspirational.
I thought so. It was very inspirational.
This guy, Steve, goes, there's only 6 of us left from the armory. I went to the armory too, but I was just a kid, so I don't really remember too much. Actually, my first leopard gecko I ever bought, believe it or not, was from Mark Bell. It was like a high yellow, just like a big adult male. And it was $30.
Yeah.
And then Mark handed me back $5. He goes, here, give the kid a break. I was like, thank you.
Well, it used to be the Bruckmans used to be there. And
Bruckmans. I remember Fred and,
Bruckmans
son
were there. And, Mike Bates, before he passed away, of course, he was always there.
Yeah, I remember Mike.
Yeah.
You got some hog nose for me.
Yeah. Yeah. So, there's seen a bunch of people come and go, seen a bunch of people move on with their life, seen some people go and come back in. So it's always cool to reminisce with somebody you haven't seen for a couple of lifetimes.
It is. Yeah, it's nice when people come back too if they've been out of it. Where they're kind of like you mentioned, like Lucas Sevick, like he has some cooler breeds, but now he's breeding horses. So there's you see people come and go, and definitely see Well,
I can remember Kevin Bryant. Jesus, got too tired. From Roden Pro, he used to come to the VFW hall. He came there a couple of times with his big blue gloves and his baby Burmese that he was afraid to get bit by. But
I seen a guy got bit by a huge berm when I was like 11, like at the armory. And at 11, I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. I always wanted to see somebody get bit by a big snake. Yeah. This guy had this like 12-foot albino berm. That was like, he said he had it for like 4 or 5 years. And that was the only thing. He got a table, and that was the only thing he had at his table in this huge, plastic tote. And he kept taking it in and out. Like people wanted to hold it. And everything. Right. He's like, you talk about, oh, it's really nice, blah, blah. And then people just wanted to like hold it. And he kept putting it back. And then after a few hours, because we kept walking around and we'd see it here and there, somebody else wanting to hold it. And then I was watching this person holding it, and it's getting kind of antsy, you know. And then he was just trying to put it back in the tub, and it was just trying to get out real fast. And he's just trying to, and it just bit him. Just grabbed his hand and bit him, turned and bit him, and he grabbed it and pulled it right off.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, it is a big albino bird. You can just see the blood like hitting the snake and then falling down the snake. And I was like, oh, that's cool.
I remember the time down. I remember the time down in Florida that Barker was showing off that big retic bite he got on his thigh.
I seen that picture in Reptiles magazine. That was insane. It was like a 19-footer.
We were like, show us, Dave. Pull it out. Show us, Dave. And it was gnarly.
He needed stitches. I remember that picture. It was like on the side of his knee, like right here. It's like, my God.
And he'll tell you, and I believe him, that it was just like a defensive bite. He was trying to get like a shed off of it, I think. And it was just kind of a, leave me alone kind of fucking bite. I'm like, geez, could you imagine the damage that bitch had done if it really meant it?
Yeah. You're supposed to wear a windbreaker like Jay Brewer. Hey, guys, watch this. This retic's real pissed. You got to get your windbreaker on first.
And go at it with the smallest hook you can find.
Put the windbreaker around your knee.
Yep. That sounds like him.
They said he said it was a quick nip, and the hospital said it looked like a chainsaw. Yeah. I guess the injury. Yeah.
It was still like a week fresh, I think, when he was showing it to us down there. And
it still looked pretty bad.
Woo, it was bad. It looks worse than the pictures you see.
Really?
Yeah. I'm like, ugh. I need to sit down, rest, do nothing for a while, take a bite like that.
Yeah, that's brutal.
But I know Don used to have some big Malaysian blood pythons, and we were having pit tagging one time. And I tell you what, I think pound for pound, other than one big pissed off 18-foot African rock python I had to fight, was the strongest animal I've ever put my hands on. I think people really underestimate the strength of a pissed off blood python. That's 8 feet each.
They're very strong. I have a few Sumatran short tails, and they're the smallest of them. And they're so strong. The funny thing is, they like retained this intense muscle mass while doing nothing.
Yeah.
For like pretty much. My mom asked me one time if they were dead because she walks by them, and it is like they burrow down into their cypress balls, and they just sit there with their heads like this. Yep. I'm like, yeah, it's like, no, that's what they do. They just kind of
glad to know you got some. I'll know where to come and get some.
I haven't bred mine yet. I put the male with the females once for like about 3 weeks, and then like they were unsuccessful, and I haven't done it again. Actually, now's the perfect time because the temp's been low. So as soon as it gets warm out, I'll put that male in with them, and I'll start blasting them with food. I would love to get eggs. Baby blood pythons are so cute. Actually, I really love bloods, especially the Sumatran short tail. Some guy at the Southeast Expo had one like a not for sale, like a nice like size like subadult that was really high black. The hyper melanated, like the ones that are really high black, like the ones that you see what's his face has too, the guy from Juggernaut. Those are really, really cool. I like all blood pythons. They're really cute. They're really cool looking. But yeah, they have a lot of power. I've heard people say that too. The one guy was saying, he goes, I'd rather get bit by a 10-foot berm than a 4 or 5 foot blood python. If it's a full on bite. Those bloods are very strong. Although bloods their body language is actually very easy to read. If they're breathing heavy and they're trembling and they're all rigid, you don't go in there. This thing's gonna mess you up. It's gonna try to spring at you. And then Crystal got this T negative. Well, I bought it in an auction. I didn't really want to win it, but for USO I got it anyway. And the thing bites like it's like getting electrocuted or tased. The blood python will just spaz with its mouth open, and it just like rolls, and it just looks like it's being tased. Nice. So some of them are nice. I have some that are very nice.
The short tails are one I've always liked. I've never worked with. And I like their size. So
yeah, they don't get too big. They're good size, but not that super big.
No, Matt Minatola, Philly Herpological, is always one of my favorite guys to see at Hamburg back in the day, and White Plains. But yeah, his what is it? The ocelots and the striped stuff. Always really enjoyed the Borneos.
Borneos are cool. I like all the line breeding they do with them, like the marbles. You know, a lot of
Yeah.
those are, I heard, they're actually line bred. Just polygenics. A lot of those different, even the ghosts, like ones they call like orange ghost rare. I think those are selectively line bred too, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, Brad's got a friend, Mike Hainsey, that does a lot of bloods, and he's telling me he's got like 60-pound blacks. He's got some huge blood pythons. I might have to go to his place one of these days to take a look at them. But
I only have one. I'll take a picture of it tomorrow and send it to you guys. This fucking thing is a beast, man. It's in like it's in a 6-foot Freedom Breeder boa rack. I have it on the lower level. It's the only one I have. He's so big. I just never want to sell him. He's a true garbage disposal at this point. He's friendly, but you got to read that body language. Some days you got to know not to fuck with him.
Yep. Yeah, they're definitely something not to turn your back on. I know.
They're cool snakes.
Before they shut Gourmet Rodent down there, Mike Lehman used to say that he had to send guys in there. Whoever signed up to work the blood python room had to wear football helmets.
Helmets.
They were so big and nasty. His stuff was so big and nasty. And Shay's had seen them. I've never seen them. And
a windbreaker.
He said he had some that dwarfed his father's, and Don had the biggest Malaysians I've ever seen. So I'd have to think twice about jumping on one of them bitches.
The Barkers had some pretty big ones too. VPI, I remember they described ones like some of the Malaysian imports. They had like a giant one, and then I think they still have it. Desiree and Forrest, they had this one that was from Garrett Hartle, and at one point I think they said it was over 60 pounds. They put on a diet. Is one of the, it's a mainland blood. It's like 7 foot, like maybe a little over 7 foot, and it's like one of the biggest ones in captivity. But it was like. It was huge. I got a picture of it, especially when I was actually at one of my, I was like at my skinniest. I was like ultra sick for a long time. And this big blood python, it actually looked good. Since I was so skinny and sick, it made the blood python look better. So that is the best time to get a picture with this blood python. I got these pictures somewhere.
Forced perspective. I like it. Well. One thing I tell people when I first went out down to Don's basement, I saw Don breeding some of the rare shit out there, and everything was in plywood cages, sheet metal bottoms, and a light bulb for heat. That's all they had. But he was probably one of the best people that I had ever seen for reading his animals, and I think that's a lot of it. You gotta be in tune with your animals. Don't think you know more than they do, or you'll lose.
No, I remember coming up in the hobby, I always heard all the stuff about like body language with ball pythons, females wrapping the water dish, leaning on their side during follicle development. And, there's a lot of species that follow that same road. Even with the boa constrictors, I see that in them. So like you said, when you start looking at the body language of your animals, knowing what you're looking for, even skink breeding, man, I talk about it. In the early days of skink breeding, I was told that they're going to be aggressive, deal with it. Put a baby sock over the mom's head, just get the male in there.
Yep.
If you wait for that like proper week to put them together, the female is so receptive now that like clearly we were doing it wrong for years.
Right, yeah.
Skink breeding is so much easier now, just simply looking at the body language of the animals.
That's awesome. Cool
animal. It even comes to feeding. There's a lot of things. Yeah, body language, paying attention to the animal. That's some of your best mentors are actually the species you work with. If you pay attention enough, they'll speak to you.
Yep, exactly.
So I think it's good time to wrap it up, guys. I think that's a good note to end on. Good advice.
It was a good 22-minute goodbye.
How sometimes we do these.
Well, 5 o'clock. 5 o'clock's just around the corner for me to go to work tomorrow. So we're good to go.
Yeah, Rob's got to go then. I got to go. I got to still work. I just drank one of those Monster Energies from the Southeast Expo. I still have a few of those. So now I'm going to be up for like another. I'm forced to be up till 6 a.m. now.
There you go.
Yeah, I'll do stuff. Anyhow, thanks everybody for tuning in. Again, Morph Market live tomorrow. If you want to bid on Hognose, we might have. I'm going to try to get up a blow up palm tree that I'm going to fill with fake blood and stab to death. Probably not. It sounds like it's too much work. The Palm Street fees are a lot. Anyway, Morph Market doesn't have those fees, so there's going to be Morph Market lives, and it's going to be like kind of like how my old school Instagram lives were. So we can talk about Hognose. I'm going to auction off hog nose. So you get really good deals. If they don't go for much money, you get to see me bitch. You are allowed to swear. Usually there's no tips, but we're going to put up a Venmo thing. So sometimes people tip and they say like lewd stuff, or they, there's a lot of harassment on there. Sometimes we do threats of violence. It's all for fun though. So it's a good time. Check it out. Morph Market Live Auction. It's 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is Rob Zerkle. Rob Zerkle and Amy Zerkle. Zerkle Reptiles, you see them at the Ohio shows. They'll be at the Atlanta show. You said you do some shows in New York too, and you'll be at
Rochester and Tinley. Yep.
All right, so come see us at Tinley. Dave's going to be there too. So we're all of us are going to be at Tinley, and that's in the middle of March. It's an RBC show. You probably already have the date if you're listening to this. If not, just look it up. I never really remember the exact weekend, but it's the middle. It's like the 17th or 18th or 16th or 15th. And Tinley's one of the big three. It's a must-see. I'd actually say it's in the big two. I'd say Daytona's pretty – I'd put Daytona, Pomona, Tinley. Those are the big three I always talk about. Tinley's a must-see. It's a fun show, really great place to network and hang out. It's not long enough for all the stuff that goes on there, especially after the show. Auction's great. So – also, when you go to my Morph Market Live auction, if you're actually even listening to this, click on that bell to save it. And because there's going to be some winners, and they each get like $1 million from Darian. Not
nice.
Really.
Fantastic. I'm down. I'm there.
All right. So bye, everybody. Thanks for everybody that joined. Thanks, Steve. Steve's been a big help. He's been in the chat. We love when people are in the chat saying stuff and being included in the conversation. If you ever want to hear us talk about something or ask a specific question, just post it. Bye, everybody. Have a good night.
See everybody in Tinley.